So, what will Chile's latest telescope tell us about the universe? The Vera Rubin Observatory's precise and comprehensive survey data will enhance and transform current understanding of how planetary systems form and evolve. The new telescope is well placed to accelerate the ability to solve the many mysteries of dark matter and dark energy, which make up 95% of the universe. It's creating a lot more space for discovery, so expect many surprises along the way. This edition of The Inquiry was presented by me, Charmaine Cozier. The producers were Louise Clark and Jill Collins, researcher Maeve Schaffer, editor Tara McDermott, and technical producer Craig Boardman.
That was The Inquiry from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho here on CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. Thanks for joining us today on Information Radio. This is your Wednesday morning show. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and here with our team at the program. We are on air with you till 8:37 a.m., and once again, widespread smoke across Manitoba. You're going to see that and smell that, and a high of 24 degrees in Winnipeg. Interesting enough, Environment Canada has stopped saying sunny or cloudy. They've just said widespread smoke. That impedes everything, right? We also have that across Brandon, where there's a high of 24 today as well. And up in Thompson, the high 22 with widespread smoke. So actually, north to south, all over the province, very similar conditions. Thanks for being here. Let's say good morning to Abby Adeyemi. He's going to be doing the weather on the air throughout the show. Good morning, Abby. Abby's also our senior tech on the program. Brad Lilly's behind the controls of our YouTube stream, and you might be watching the show streaming there. And Sierra Sanders is in this morning as well. Good morning, Sierra. Sierra is our show director, and will be on air covering your commute, which hopefully will go smoothly today. Heather Wells is here with our first news update of the day. Good morning, Heather.
Good morning. Well, a remote northern community wants the province to be proactive fighting wildfires moving closer to them. Leaders at Opipon Napiwin Cree Nation say firefighting crews haven't been deployed to their area, and now flames near Leaf Rapids are blocking the only access road in and out. We're going to hear more about that. As well, at a heated and packed town hall last night, a group called Fairness for Clear Lake pushed for Park Canada's boat ban to be lifted. That ban was introduced over the May long weekend to stop the spread of invasive zebra mussels. Fairness for Clear Lake says cottage and business owners have been left out of the decision making. We'll hear more Manitoba News coming up at 6:30.
All right. Thanks very much, Heather. Well, speaking of gatherings, yesterday they got a little heated. The U.S. ambassador to Canada got a less than friendly welcome in Winnipeg yesterday. We're going to hear from a Manitoban who protested and have a closer look at what this says about the state of the Canada-U.S. relationship during Trump's second term, so stay tuned for that. Also in the first hour of the program, with all of this smoke going on, the Canadian Football League postponed a game, actually, between the Calgary Stampeders and the Saskatchewan Roughriders a few weeks back. That was because of poor air quality due to wildfire. We're going to have a closer look at that with Dr. Raj Bardwaj on our medical column today. And then stay tuned, because we're also going to hear why Manitobans are among the least happy people in Canada. World Report's next.
Today on Q.
I'm Garvey Bailey, sitting in for Tom Power. World-renowned fashion designer Prabal Gurung grew up with an abusive father and bullies at school who teased him for being too feminine.
Didn't fit in the narrow description of what a boy should behave like or walk like or be like.
His new memoir pays tribute to all the women who made him the designer he is today.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Across the Pacific, some people in coastal towns and cities are being told to go to higher ground. Tsunami waves could be coming. A powerful, shallow, magnitude 8.8 earthquake struck Russia's Far East yesterday. It is one of the strongest quakes ever recorded. Large waves rippled out from the epicenter. A tsunami advisory is in effect for parts of coastal British Columbia. And the first swells are starting to hit Vancouver Island. Right now, they are under 30 centimeters high. The CBC's Mira Baines has the latest.
Chief Elmer Frank, the emergency coordinator for the Kla'oquiat First Nation near Tofino, was cautious after the earthquake.
Because we've seen that it's a larger earthquake than we've seen in our lifetime, in my lifetime anyway, that's that close, that could potentially affect our BC coast.
The potential of strong waves from tsunami activity along BC's west coast triggered a flurry of advisories. The earthquake struck just before 4:30 Pacific in the afternoon off the coast of eastern Russia in the Pacific Basin. People along BC's coast are being advised to avoid marinas, harbors, beaches until emergency officials say it's safe. Seismologist Tammy Mulder with Natural Resources Canada is warning that even smaller tsunami waves can be dangerous.
There are much stronger currents along the coastline up and down and very confused waters. And so it's very important for people to know that even with these lower forecasted wave heights, one still wants to be away from the water.
Emergency Management BC is warning that waves arrive in a series, and the first may not be the biggest. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
Northern California is under a tsunami warning. Waves just over a meter high are hitting the coast of Crescent City. That is just south of the border with Oregon. Further south, the U.S. National Weather Service says tidal swings of just under a meter were measured in San Francisco. Hawaii got some good news earlier this morning. The Weather Service says the state is not expected to be hit by a major tsunami. It is currently under just an advisory. Major General Stephen Logan says tells residents what they can expect now.
A tsunami advisory means that the potential for strong currents or dangerous waves are expected or occurring for those in or near the water. There may be flooding of beach or harbor areas. Those who have evacuated may safely return home based on county assessments and directives.
The state says it is working to reopen commercial harbors to shipping. In Japan, officials are taking no chances. They have memories of the earthquake and tsunami in 2011 and the nuclear accident it caused. Nearly 2 million people are under evacuation advisories in that country. Kaz Boivin reports from Tokyo.
Civil defense sirens wail in Japan's northern prefecture of Hokkaido as officials warn a tsunami of up to 3 meters high could soon crash into the coast. People flee to rooftops or take to the roads in bumper-to-bumper traffic up hillsides. So far, at least one person has died in the scramble to reach safety. A 58-year-old woman in central Japan whose car careened down a cliffside after her city was placed under a tsunami advisory. It's been almost a decade and a half since a powerful tremor and subsequent tsunami devastated parts of eastern Japan, especially the Tohoku region, home to the Fukushima nuclear plant. Workers decommissioning that facility are among those who've been forced to move to higher ground. By late afternoon, there were reports of tsunami waves of more than a meter high reaching some areas. No major damage yet, but it's too early to rest easy. Because the quake happened so far away, bigger waves could still be on the way. Kaz Boivin for CBC News, Tokyo.
CBC News has learned the Canadian government is weighing whether to recognize Palestinian statehood, and if so, whether that recognition would come with conditions. Prime Minister Mark Carney is expected to discuss the Middle East this afternoon at a virtual cabinet meeting. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer threatened to recognize a Palestinian state yesterday. Starmer says he will do it in September if Israel does not agree to a ceasefire in Gaza and allow the UN to bring in more aid. The Alberta riding of Battle River Crowfoot may be a traditionally conservative riding, but Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has a lot of competition for that seat. The by-election is just under 3 weeks away. 10 candidates were part of a debate last night, and as Julia Wong reports, Poilievre faced a lot of criticism from his challengers.
I absolutely 100% agree. If you want to run for an area, you need to live here.
Pointed words attacking Pierre Poilievre, the Conservative leader, one of 10 candidates at a forum for the Battle River Crowfoot by-election. Poilievre lost his Ottawa area riding in April's federal election. Independent candidate Bonnie Critchley is taking issue with him running now in Alberta.
I have no personal aspirations. I don't want to do this. But it is important to me that we have a voice in Parliament. I firmly believe that Monsieur Poilievre is too busy with his own personal ambitions to give a rat's backside about us.
Grant Abraham is a candidate with the United Party of Canada.
Pandering to Ontario and Quebec to get this gentleman elected, and you're paying the price. That's what's going on.
Poilievre says there can be upsides to having a leader of a political party as the area's MP.
That leader can bring a very powerful megaphone to the local issues of the community.
While Poilievre was the main target of attacks, he remained subdued and connected issues he has previously campaigned on to voters in the rural riding.
Your right to protect and keep your firearms. That is a local issue.
Voters head to the polls August 18th. Julia Wong, CBC News, Camrose, Alberta.
The Bank of Canada will release its latest interest rate this morning. The benchmark rate has been sitting at 2.75% since March. As our senior business reporter Nisha Patel tells us, many economists are not expecting another cut.
The bank is going to continue to hold.
Economists, including RBC's Claire Fan, are nearly unanimous. The Bank of Canada is likely to hold its key interest rate steady at 2.75% for the third time in a row.
Some of the data on the economy that we've seen have pointing to surprisingly more strength and resilience in both sort of labor market as well as underlying inflation. So I think that
Canada added a surprising 83,000 jobs in June, and core inflation has been stuck near 3% since April. That's eased the pressure for further interest rate cuts. In fact, Fan predicts the central bank is done lowering rates for now.
Again, there's a lot of resilience in terms of consumer spending and early signs of housing market activities kind of recovering as well. Our outlook for the second half of the year is really for this sort of slower growth, but not really contractionary sort of state to continue.
Not all experts agree, with some expecting 2 more cuts starting in the fall. Forecasts could change quickly depending on how the U.S. trade war plays out. So far, the damage has largely been contained to 3 industries: autos, steel, and aluminum, though Canada faces a 35% tariff on some exports if a deal isn't reached by August 1st. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
After the Bank of Canada makes its announcement, the U.S. Federal Reserve will make its key interest rate decision. For 3 decades, the Federal Reserve has set monetary policy based on a consensus between its governors. But 2 of the 7 governors were appointed by U.S. President Donald Trump, and he has been threatening to fire the Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell, for not lowering interest rates. If there is no rate cut today, those Trump appointees could take the highly unusual step of dissenting from the decision. North America's oldest annual sporting event is on today in Newfoundland. Tens of thousands of people are expected to attend the 207th edition of the Royal St. John's Regatta. Races are taking place all day on Kitiviti Lake. Keith White is on the regatta's board.
The athletes that row, these are real athletes. Like, they take so much pride in their sport, their training on and off the pond, 12 months a year. It's the friendships they build. I've heard multiple stories of rowers who, met people on the pond 20, 30, 40 years ago. They're friends today. They stood for each other in weddings.
The regatta is traditionally held the first Wednesday in August, but it is a week early this year. St. John's hosts the Canada Summer Games next month. For the first time, co-ed races are on the program, and the new open category is being added through a partnership with St. John's Pride. That is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Wednesday. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team at Information Radio, and you are on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM, on the app, on YouTube. Thanks for being here. It's smoky again all across the province today, widespread smoke. This hour on our medical column, what is all of this doing to us? What's the cumulative effect? We're going to have a deeper look. I know we've had that conversation a couple of times, but this time it's with Raj Bhardwaj, our medical columnist. He has some new advice, actually, about what to watch for as we look at that poor air quality. So stay tuned. In addition, we're going to hear how a U.S. ambassador, or rather the U.S. ambassador to Canada, was here in Winnipeg yesterday and got a less than friendly welcome. We'll hear why. We'll have a closer look at what was said and the exchanges. Also staying with politics, a closer look at how Elections Canada is preparing for that by-election with Pierre Poilievre in Battle River Crowfoot. So we'll look at all of that this hour on Information Radio. Let's start with local news headlines, though. Heather Wells is here to tell us what's happening in Manitoba. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Winnipeg home care workers and clients say they are frustrated over a new centralized scheduling system. The Winnipeg Regional Health Authority implemented that system nearly 5 months ago to try to improve the service, but patients like George Cannell don't know who's coming or when. He says clients joke about it all the time. And concerns this morning the extended closure of Winnipeg's Louise Bridge will lead to it closing indefinitely. A similar situation happened in 2023 when it was decided the Arlington Bridge was too far gone to repair. It also has been closed indefinitely since then. We're going to hear more about the history and the importance of the Louise Bridge to Winnipeg. I'll be back with more Manitoba News coming up at 6:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Let's get into what's happening in the forecast now. Abby, good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. Smoky skies continue again, covering much of the province. We're looking at air quality index 10 plus for both the northern and the southern parts of the province today. So the smoke is going to be impacting almost all the communities. Hence, that air quality statement we have in effect due to the smoke from the fires impacting more of central, southern, and northern Manitoba. If you're in these areas, it's best to avoid outdoor activities if the smoke is affecting you. 13 degrees right now in Winnipeg. The sun is already making its appearance under those hazy skies. The smoke will linger, as mentioned. The air quality health index is around 10 for Winnipeg this morning. We warm up to 24 with the humidity. It's going to feel warmer than that, and we'll see the winds shifting from the south to the north later in the day. Clear skies expect tonight, but the smoke will hang back. For the southern part of the province, we're looking at temperatures between 7 and 14 at this time, and most of the regions will warm up close to 26 degrees. Up north, we're seeing 4 to 11 degrees up in that part of the province with smoky and hazy skies, and highs would only get around 19 to 24. So it's more like warmer temperatures in the southern part of the province, and the north is starting on a cool side this morning.
Tell you what, last night, like in the evening, kind of late afternoon evening and through the evening, it was very beautiful in Winnipeg.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah, like I opened the windows and I was like, wow, it's not too hot. It's not too smoky. By the evening time, it seemed a bit better. And it was just quite lovely to be out and about yesterday in Winnipeg. Although I have to say the darkness.
Yeah,
you're noticing the darkness like in the evening, right? Coming just a little creak sooner and then in the morning.
Yeah. Do you want me to give you the countdown?
No.
Or no?
All right, can we handle this? We can handle this. Everyone knows Abby loves Christmas.
22 more weekends.
Okay. Good. You have lots of time to buy my gift then. That's good. That's good.
Aiming for it.
All right, let's get into things with Sierra Sanders, who's popped in. She's our show director, of course, but she also covers what's happening on your commute. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, it is the beginning of the show and also the beginning of this Wednesday hump day commute. So not too much developing out there at the moment, but you never know, things might pop up. And if they do, whether you are here in the city or out on the highways, I'd love to hear about it. But I will say I was outside yesterday or last night as well. I was at the Gold Eyes game.
Oh, nice.
And it was beautiful. It was beautiful, honestly. And also Blue Cross Park is just
nice,
with
right?
the backdrop of the Human Rights Museum behind it. It is gorgeous.
You know, I haven't been to a ball game in so long, and you got perfect weather for it. I should absolutely get that in this summer. It's fun to go to those games.
Yeah, it was super fun. It was nice to just hang out with friends, and it's such a fun atmosphere, local atmosphere, and it was quite busy actually. It was a lot busier than I thought it was going to be for a Tuesday evening.
Oh yeah, they get really dedicated fans for sure. Some of the best in the league, some of the best numbers. Did they win?
I did leave a little early because,
I was going to say, you got to get up early.
Exactly. I had to leave my group of friends and say, hey, sorry, I have to wake up at very early tomorrow morning
nice
for work.
Night at the ballpark, though.
It was gorgeous, but let's hope you have a nice commute as well this morning. So you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number is 204-788-3093.
We're going to look up the gold I score for you last night in case you were there as well, or maybe you had to head home early as well. But right now, let's get into something else that happened yesterday in Winnipeg that had a much different tone than a celebratory ball game. Canada is inching closer to yet another deadline to a trade deal with the United States. Of course, Friday is August 1st. But as the clock winds down, the American ambassador came to Winnipeg to deliver a message. Peter Hoekstra spoke to an audience of business people, government officials as well, at the Winnipeg Art Gallery yesterday afternoon. Now, here's a snippet of what he said.
The debate is, okay, who is the fastest growing economy in the G7? Is it Canada or is it the U.S.? And there is evidence that both could claim that makes them the fastest growing economy in the G7. That would be an awesome discussion to have. And, you know, that's where we are headed. And for Canadians who are thinking of doing business in the United States, and yes, you have alternatives. You can go to Asia, you can go to the EU, but the real question is, do you want to tie yourselves to a country that that is going to have a booming economy, or one that not so much? And I would think that you're going to want to tie yourselves to the opportunities that a growing economy brings, and that's where we're that's where we are focused. And right now I wouldn't bet against America.
That was American Ambassador Pete Hoekstra speaking at WAG, the WAG yesterday in Winnipeg, the Art Gallery. Now, although Hoekstra finished his speech to a round of applause, not everyone was happy to see the American diplomat or hear his message. Outside of the Art Gallery, a group of demonstrators raised concerns about the American policies toward Cuba, Gaza, and Canada. Sarah Borbridge with Peace Alliance Winnipeg was one of the people yesterday at outside the event protesting. Here's some of what she shared about her concerns.
We want to send a message that we do not want U.S. interference and their policies in Canadian policies. So a lot of people that are out here right now are really concerned about what they're seeing in Palestine. They're really concerned about what they're seeing with like the war budget increasing, and we just want to take a stand against that.
And what would you like the ambassador to hear from you?
Well, we just want to let him know that he's not welcome here.
Sarah Borbridge is with Peace Alliance Winnipeg, one of the demonstrators in front of the WAG yesterday in conversation with CBC Radio-Canada. Manitoba Liberal MP and Chair of the Commons Industry Committee, Ben Carr, was also there yesterday. He spoke to CBC's Bartley Kivas about the future of the relationship between Canada and the U.S.
We've seen a decline in what used to be the closest friendship between two countries in the world. Questions were asked about that. We didn't really hear that many direct answers. Are you satisfied with what you heard from that ambassador?
Well, I don't think the purpose of today's visit, Bartley, was to have a conversation about the intricate details of the negotiations of the two countries in terms of the ongoing trade negotiations that are taking place. I think the purpose was for us to have an opportunity to hear some insight about his view as to what may have changed or what might be changing in the nature of the relationship between our two countries. But I'm not surprised that there weren't more specific details shared, because these things have to take place as they should between our senior officials who have a deep understanding of what's going on, and I anticipate that in the very near future we'll have more that both countries will be able to offer.
We've seen some of these ambassadors come here with a heck of a lot of candor, saying what is and what isn't working. Do you think this ambassador is understanding the gravity to which Canadians are upset?
Yeah. My job is not to offer commentary about the way that the U.S. ambassador, the ambassador from any country to Canada, chooses to characterize the nature of the relationship. My job, particularly as the chair of the House of Commons Industry Committee and as a member of Parliament from here in Winnipeg South Centre, is to make sure that I continue to represent, as a member of the government, the needs of Canadians from coast to coast to coast. As the ambassador mentioned, there is a lot of strength that remains in the fabric between our two countries based on deeply entrenched historical alliances, based on culture, based on trade, based on a variety of other very important metrics. And I think that we have to continue to work through the very difficult moment that we are in. So I'm not interested in commenting on what the ambassador himself may use as a characterization of the relationship. What I'm focused on here, and I know that Prime Minister Carney and Premier Canoe and others are incredibly focused on, is making sure that whatever comes from the deal that we will inevitably forge with our American colleagues in Washington is done in a way that puts Canada on a path toward greater prosperity. If we have to diversify, which I believe we do, and the Prime Minister has been very clear that we do, we will. Obviously, there is a necessity for us to continue to have a strong relationship, and there is a desire for us to continue to have a strong relationship with the United States of America, and I think that the Prime Minister is very well positioned to ensure that this country comes out of that with a fair deal for all people in Canada.
It was Manitoba Liberal MP and Chair of the Commons Industry Committee, Ben Carr, yesterday, speaking at the Winnipeg Art Gallery with CBC's Bartley Kivas after the speech and visit from the American Ambassador Pete Hoekstra. If you want to read more about the story, Bartley has a website file up that you can read at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes our world. Staying on top of stories around the globe. And connected close to home. It's news you can trust. Delivered when you want and where you want. On Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1. Local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
6:22 a.m. It is mainly sunny now and 13 degrees in Winnipeg. There is widespread smoke. Tonight, this should clear out and a low of 10 degrees. Another good night for a ball game, and there will be another one at the park. The Goldeyes, by the way, did lose last night, 4-2 to Fargo, but back in action again tonight. This part of a series. And apparently at Blue Cross Park tonight, it is once again Ukrainian night. And so they're doing this so you think you can dance Ukrainian contest, and then, of course, food and singing and all kinds of fun going to be going on there. Well, let's return to talking about politics because we're also getting close to August 18th, and that's when Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre will have a second chance to win a seat in Parliament. It comes down to a by-election in Alberta, but voters will notice things are different in that race. More than 200 candidates have signed up to run. The number more than doubles the previous record. And to talk about why, Alex Marland is with us. He is the Jaroslawski Chair in Trust and Political Leadership at Acadia University. Good morning.
Good morning.
So let's talk about the longest ballot. We've talked about it on this show before, but can you outline for people that haven't been leading into those conversations, why are there so many people running in this by-election?
I think a good place to start is to think about political activists. So what activists do is they try to attract public attention, political attention, media attention to a cause that they feel is being ignored. And in this particular case, the tactics that the longest ballot committee are using to attract attention to their desire to get us talking about electoral reform involves getting volunteers from across the country to flood the ballot. So they sign up to run as independents, even though they themselves are not located in the riding and are not knocking on doors.
From a voter's perspective, then, how will that work?
Well, I mean, one of the things is people end up talking about the ballot as opposed to necessarily talking about local issues. But this is actually going to be a very different way to vote when people vote on election day in this by-election. Because normally what would happen, of course, is you would get a ballot and it would have, I don't know, maybe 5 names on it. You put an X next to the person you're supporting. It also says the name of the party if there's one associated with that person. And then you put it in the ballot box. Well, in this particular case, there's over 200 candidates. The ballot would be as long or as tall as a human being. And so it just doesn't make any sense. So instead what has happened is the chief electoral officer said, listen, we are going to have a ballot where you have to write the name of the candidate. And so that creates some complications because what happens is, first of all, I would think it's reasonable that most Conservatives in that riding are going to know the name of Pierre Poilievre to write there. So that's potentially a bit of an advantage for the Conservatives and a disadvantage for other political parties and legitimate independents and even the longest ballot committee independents. But then what ends up happening is you're going to end up having people handwriting names of people, and their handwriting, of course, isn't always going to be clear. And as long, if there's a spelling mistake, an election official will determine what was intended and will accept it. But you can now imagine when it comes time to count the ballots, what's going to happen is you're going to have to look at handwriting and associate that handwriting with a list of over 200 names and try to match them up. And if you have a hard time interpreting handwriting, trying to figure out which name is on that list is going to be difficult. So I think what we're going to see is it's going to take a while to come up with the final results.
Well, we'll see what happens on the 18th. Just enough time to touch this story today, and we appreciate your time, Alex Marland. Thank you.
All right. My pleasure.
That is Alex Marland, the Jaroslavsky Chair in Trust and Political Leadership at Acadia University. That by-election, by the way, goes on August 18th, as I mentioned, and the name of the by-election region in Alberta is the riding of Battle River Crowfoot. It is 6:26 a.m. right now. We're going to slide in a little bit of music before we get to our 6:30 local news and return to Manitoba stories. A Nigerian-Canadian musician, Toby, released a new album earlier this month. It's a sequel to his previous album. This one's called Elements Volume 2. Now you know why it's a sequel. It's a sequel to Elements Volume 1. Here's one of the new tunes that he released with the album. This one's called Changes.
I'm going through these changes. I'm going through changes. I just wanna keep to myself sometimes. I'm going through these changes. I pray I'm the greatest. Doing what I can. Can I owe no man? Stand in the fire, yeah. Oh, I done laid my head, seen some signs. Gotta keep my peace, free my mind. And the world don't know what the pain inside. You can run all day, but sure can't hide. Changes, 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 changes. Plotting on me, dangerous. Down on my knees, praying. Show them the peace I painted. They ain't never see the shame inside. Level my movement, soul with them voices. Cover my body, soul and anointing. Changes, they see me on the podium rejoicing. Where were you when I had no options? Changes, I gotta make these changes. For now, not later. I'm going through these changes. I'm going through changes. I just wanna keep myself sometimes. I'm going through these changes. I pray I'm the greatest. Doing what I can. Can I owe no man? Stand in the fire, yeah. Oh, lay my head, see some signs. Gotta keep my peace, free my mind. Put it up one time. Put it up one time, up one time. Feel my fear, kill my pride. Feel my fear, kill my pride.
From Elements Volume 2, which is out now, that's Toby and Changes, who is a Nigerian-Canadian musician. This is a follow-up from his first album. This is Elements Volume 2, and it just came out earlier this month. We have business news coming up here on CBC's Information Radio. Phil DeMont will be in once again this morning talking about the International Monetary Fund. It just came out with its latest economic updates, so we're going to hear more about what it signals about the global economy. Just a reminder to check 511 before you're heading out on the highways, just because we do have still closures and detours, especially up north around some of the smokiest and wildfire areas. Otherwise, here across the province, we do have widespread smoke, but no issues in traffic south that we've heard of so far. But call us if you need to, beyond the Louise Bridge being closed, which we know. You can call us at 788-3093. Stay right here because your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is 12 degrees right now in downtown Winnipeg, heading to a high of 24. And once again, we are shrouded in smoke and air quality warning again for Winnipeg. The smoke is expected to start to clear later today. A remote northern community wants the province to be proactive in fighting wildfires moving closer. Leaders at Opipon Napiwin Cree Nation say firefighting crews haven't been deployed to their area, and flames near Leaf Rapids are blocking the only access road in and out. MKO Grand Chief Garrison Settee says the community's in danger.
How critical the situation is here is pretty apparent. And the nation is in a very vulnerable state. The existential threat of wildfires puts them even more at risk.
More than 900 people are still in Opipon Napiwin, while a couple hundred vulnerable people are in Winnipeg. The province says staff is in regular contact with the community with updates about the fire. Winnipeg home care workers and clients are frustrated over a new centralized scheduling system. The Winnipeg Regional Health Authority implemented the system nearly 5 months ago to try to improve service. But patients say they don't know who is coming or when. Health Minister Uzoma Eseguera acknowledges the change to home care has been disruptive, but says efforts are focused on improving the centralized rollout.
I know that change can always be difficult, but what we've also seen is that there are opportunities here to improve this centralized rollout and improve these services overall.
The WRHA says it is working with the government to address concerns raised by home care clients and staff. One of the strongest earthquakes ever recorded has hit Russia's far east. It happened last night, sending tsunami waves into Japan, Hawaii, and the U.S. and Canadian west coasts.
Get away from the beaches, get inland, and get upward. That's our message right now.
Now, no substantial damage has been reported so far, but authorities warning people to stay away from shorelines, saying the risk could last more than a day. Ports on the Kamchatka Peninsula in Russia near the 8.8 magnitude quake's epicenter flooded as people fled inland. Within hours, waves of about half a meter washed up to the shore in northern Japan. Even smaller waves were predicted on western Vancouver Island. Warnings have since been downgraded elsewhere. You can hear the latest on the earthquake and the tsunamis coming up on World Report at 7. Canada's trade relationship with the United States is worth saving. That's the message Winnipeg business leaders heard from the U.S. ambassador. Pete Hoekstra spoke to about 200 people at a Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce meeting yesterday. WinPAC Vice President Randy Zasitko also sat in on a smaller meeting with about 20 business leaders and politicians. He says the U.S. ambassador held out hope Canada's goods entering the U.S. could end up with lower tariffs than other countries have been able to negotiate.
From his perspective, he says there is no reason why we look at the agreements that have been achieved at the 10, 15%, whatever. He says there's no reason Canada can't be even lower than that. Now, he didn't promise that by any means.
Despite the recent tariff talk from U.S. President Trump, Hoekstra says a continent-wide free trade zone could even be a possibility. Tensions were high at a packed town hall in Clear Lake last night. A ban on motorized boats has sparked public outrage. That ban was introduced over the May-long weekend to stop the spread of invasive zebra mussels. People last night called on Parks Canada to reverse the ban. Independent biologist Mark Loudon, hired by Fairness for Clear Lake, which organized the town hall, says the focus now needs to shift to protecting nearby lakes.
Ecologically, those mussels are still going to move around that lake with or without boats. Everyone knows that the mussels already moved with all the effort, and Parks Canada has done a lot of work to try to contain those.
Parks Canada says it's looking at how boats affect zebra mussel spread in Clear Lake, and they will look for the results by fall. Manitoba's infrastructure minister says she is talking to a Northern First Nation about building an all-season road, but she'll need Ottawa's help to make it happen. Leaders from York Factory say they have been nearly left stranded. Low water levels leaving the ferry it needs for transportation grounded. It's been grounded for more than 2 weeks. Minister Lisa Naylor says an all-season road is worth studying, but first there is another project to finish.
We're already engaged in all-weather road to the future Wasagamok Airport area. This might be the next, kind of step on our process that, makes sense, but we do need Canada to be involved.
York Factory estimates the 60-kilometre road will cost about $150 million. Concerns this morning, the extended closure of Winnipeg's Louise Bridge will lead to it closing indefinitely. A similar situation happened in 2023 when it was decided the Arlington Bridge was too far gone to save. It has been closed indefinitely since. Cindy Tugwell at Heritage Winnipeg doesn't want to see the Louise Bridge end up the same way.
Historically, that bridge is so important to the city. It's the first bridge that opened and really put us on the map as a major urban center, and we were developing and we were confident.
The 115-year-old Louise Bridge spanning the Red River was supposed to reopen this week, but unforeseen maintenance issues are pushing that to early September. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Abby Adiyemi, how's the weather?
The smoke is impacting regions up north and into the south with poor air quality and hazy conditions, and that would linger in a lot of the regions today. Hence, that air quality warning we have in place impacting the Pembina Valley region, the Westman region, the Parkland region, the Interlake region, even Winnipeg this morning. And we're looking at the powerful influence Thompson and surrounding area. Visibility is going to be impacted, and the air quality may shift quickly. So we're advising you to spend less time outside if it's affecting you. Winnipeg and surrounding areas, we're looking at 13 degrees right now. The sun is making an appearance under the smoky skies. The smoke is going to be thick across the region this morning. Winds are calm for now. The high would get to 24, but it's going to feel humid, and then we'll see some clear conditions with the smoke clearing out sometime later in the evening. In the Pembina Valley region, Modern, Winkler, Alton and Morris, all the way down to the U.S. border, we're looking at a sunny stat, 12 degrees also in that part of the province. Smoke will continue across the region. Temperatures will get to around 24 degrees this afternoon, and the winds will be coming from the north, but it's going to feel light. For the Westman region, Brandon is cloudy at 10 degrees at this time. Smoke is also in that part of the region. Winds are light for now coming from the northeast. We're going to see highs expected to get to 24, 25 for that region. In the Parkland region, Dauphin is kind of chilly at 7. Some mist being spotted here and there. Smoky skies also. The winds are calm from that for now coming from the west. It's going to get breezy at some point, and smoke will continue through the day in that region. Temperatures will warm up to 26. Gimli is at 6 degrees at this time. The skies also trying to see some sunny conditions, but the smoke is really in play there for the region. Expect smoky skies, highs around 24, but we should be seeing some clearing later tonight in a lot of regions in the southern part of the province. Now, tracking conditions in the northern part of the province. We're talking about the PAR, Flin Flon Thompson. The PAR is at 9 degrees right now, smoky. It's cloudy out there. We're seeing light winds coming from the southeast, and we warm up to 24. Flin Flon is at 10 degrees. Thompson is at 4 degrees, mainly clear, and Churchill is at 11 right now with winds coming from the northwest, but it's going to get breezy at some point. Skies are cleared through the day for Churchill, but across the rest of the province, it's more like smoke, hazy conditions, and humidity.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
It's quiet in traffic, which is good. That means that you're staying safe out there. If you do see a problem, call us. I should say call Sierra more directly. She'll be picking it up. 788-3093 is where you can reach CBC with any traffic updates. I want to mention just briefly here that we have a story coming up in the next hour with a mom who is speaking out. She is talking about a huge challenge with her son. When this Winnipeg mom learned that her son was being kicked out of his private school at just 5 years old, she says she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Now she wonders if there was more that could have been done to prevent this. Her son has ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. She's going to join us to walk through the details of this and exactly what happened here. So that's coming up in a feature interview in about an hour from now, in the next hour of the show. Right now, though, it's time to lean into business news. And with that, Phil DeMont is here with our report this morning. Hi.
Hi, Marcy.
So the International Monetary Fund, Phil, just came out with its latest economic update. What do you think it says about the global economy?
Well, it turns out the organization's more optimistic about the global growth now, but it sees an economic cost with all these tariffs. IMF released its recalculation of global economic growth this week. So they think the global GDP will expand 3% this year, 3.1% next year. It's not a big jump from its April update, about 0.1%, but the arrow is going in the right direction. For a long time, a lot of the estimates have been downgraded as time went along. Now they're turning around a little bit. Canada should do a bit better than the IMF originally expected. Growth of 1.6% this year, 1.9% next year. Same with the States. Better growth than first thought. There are a couple of reasons for this. The IMF figures more companies worldwide bought more products earlier in the year than it had originally expected. Firms were trying to get ahead of the looming global trade war, but they just really piled up the inventory. Also, the actual tariff rate that the U.S. has slapped on its imports is less than what's announced. There's 50%, 35%, whatever. But it actually, in the actual effective rate, is somewhere in the range of 10% to 12%, that area. That's because of all of Washington's exemptions and delays. That's the good. There is bad, though. Global growth and growth in the U.S. set to take a big tumble. The planet's GDP increased last year 3.3%, so now it's on a 3% track. But the U.S. is a big drop. It grew about 2.8% last year. This year is expected to grow at 1.9%, so that's almost 1 full percentage point lower, 1/3 less than what it grew last year. Some of this slowdown was inevitable. We were expecting, that the economy was going to, especially in North America, ratchet down a bit. But a big chunk of the drop is because of all the new tariffs that are hitting North America this year.
Let's look at U.S. home prices. I see they just hit a record high. Are Canadian prices in the same boat?
It turns out no. This week, American home prices hit a record. The median price there, $435,000, up 2% from a year ago. The issue in the U.S., like Canada, not enough homes getting built. That's keeping prices high. But you've got this other trend where more homeowners are reluctant to sell because of the high prices. They have to buy a new house, and fewer people can afford the higher sticker price on the home. As a result, the number of homes changing hands in the U.S. is at its lowest level since the 2010s. Up here, Canadians face affordability problems when it comes to getting a new home. If you buy a single-family detached house, it'll take 61% of your income. That's twice the accepted percentage rate for that measure. The real problem, home affordability in Canada actually is at its best level in 3 years, according to RBC, and prices have been falling. The median price for a home in Canada, $677,000 now. That's about 17% less than the record back February 2022. But the 5-year mortgage rate now, I got it at 6.5%. Back in 2021, it was under 5%. What all that means, even at lower prices, many Canadians still can't afford to buy.
Before we look at the markets and the numbers this morning, some vacation spots in Europe have recently been pushing back against foreign tourists, huge groups of them. What's the latest on why they're doing it?
Yeah, the latest is fining people for inappropriate apparel in towns. A resort in France's Atlantic coast will fine you $175 if you're wandering around in your bathing suit in the town. Okay in the beach, but not in the cobblestone streets. We usually think of inappropriate as skimpy bikinis and those way too revealing men's Speedo briefs, but the town gets after shirtless men. It turns out overweight males with hairy stomachs and bad posture is not a great advertisement for a quaint beachside village. French towns, same story. Other French towns, fines if you walk around scantily clad off the beach. It's a growing trend, mainly in Europe. Locals upset about the friendly foreign invasion, anti-tourism, tourist graffiti in Greece, water pistols in Italy, bus stopping in Spain, and you can see why. This year, Europe will have more than 155 million room nights booked. That's twice the pre-pandemic high, and countries grappling what to do with this temporary overpopulation, but it's a dilemma. The economies want the foreign money, the citizens don't want the foreign headaches.
What's going on in those markets, Phil?
Europe right now, it's mixed. Germany, France, decent gains. UK is down. The Chinese-U.S. talks terminated without an extension on the tariff holiday. So Hong Kong now down more than 1%. Oil off 60 cents, $68.62 a barrel. Gold's down a toonie to $3,323 U.S. an ounce. And the Canadian dollar continues to fall in value, trading at 72.53 cents U.S.
All right, Phil, we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks, Marcy.
That's Phil DeMont. He's filling in with business news on CBC. Why Widespread smoke is an issue today. We're going to hear more about the impact on our health from Dr. Waj Bardwaj this half hour. Mainly sunny, though, in Winnipeg, 13. Brandon's cloudy, 10. Thompson's smoky, and 4. And coming up a little bit later in the program, we actually have a panel of Gen Zers that are going to talk about dealing with climate anxiety and what it's like as these wildfires continue to burn and more. So stay tuned. That's still ahead. One of the other things that is being discussed among the wildfires happening across Canada is what do you do to protect your property? This week on What on Earth, the team is looking at Fire Smart program. The Fire Smart program, rather. Guest host Joanna Wagstaff invited firefighter Julian Hedrick to give her advice about safeguarding her family's home.
If this does light on fire, again, radiant heat exposure.
Our home in North Vancouver backs right onto a trail leading into wooded mountains. With 2 small kids and a big dog running around and all the scattered toys that go along with that, there's a lot going on in my yard.
Your foundation is good, but we want to get rid of things like this fence, this flower pot, this rain container.
Yeah,
I'm assuming
gray water.
it is. These tables, these chairs, this storage container over here, we'd want to get rid of. Yep. And the fire truck would unfortunately need to go.
The fire truck doesn't make the cut, okay.
Over 1.5 meters away.
Okay, so I have a lot of stuff, but Julian keeps coming back to this immediate zone, the 1.5 meters around the home that should be cleared of anything that can catch fire, because of something else he keeps bringing up, ember storms.
So think about that. We could have a fire 2 kilometers away. You might not even see the flames, but your house might still catch on fire because of the ember storm.
Then Julian spots the giant propane tank on my deck.
So this is something that we definitely don't want close to the home. We would want this farther than 10 meters away from the home. We see this very often. There's barbecues on decks. There's barbecues like nearby on the property. Let's move those away. I would have some sort of a contingency plan in case something happens. It's not realistic to have everyone barbecue 10, 30 meters away. Not everyone even has a backyard. So think about, if something does happen, what am I going to do with that propane? Put it inside. If it's natural gas, shut off the natural gas.
So the same goes for all those toys and plants I have around the side of the house. I could make moving them inside part of my emergency plan if an evacuation notice is ever issued. Hard to move a veggie garden, though. That's why planting water-retaining vegetables and spacing them out is so important. Then we get to the part I was really worried about.
Okay, now let's take a look at the trees.
Okay. This is the one I'm the most nervous about because to set the scene, I mean, we've got beautiful big old cedars and pines and I love this part, but this is the part I'm nervous about.
Exactly. It's the same reason everyone moves to the district North Vancouver is what makes them nervous now, right? With us being in constant wildfire season. Someone has done awesome and has actually limbed all these trees so that the fire would have to go all the way up there to catch them on fire.
I'm so glad we did one good thing.
Yeah. See what else we got.
Oh, we got a lot. Now we're getting into the real foliage of the property.
Yeah. So it's tough, right? Because how do you mitigate everything in your backyard?
Julian says the risk of losing my home to fire goes way down if I focus on changes to the house and the 10 meters around it. He says ideally I should replace my roof and my deck with non-combustible materials. So I did a rough calculation, and we're talking $20,000 for a roof, $15,000 for a new deck, a few thousand for more siding. Plus, I really need to rent a wood chipper.
So that is just a sample of what you can hear today on the What on Earth podcast. If you want to check it out, their show also airs today right here on the air after the 2 o'clock news if you want to listen on 89.3 FM here on Radio 1. So the show is What on Earth, and of course looking at how to protect properties from wildfires. They were in Vancouver. Here in Manitoba, we can tell you that we obviously still have people evacuated from their homes and communities. And today, a big part of the story is air quality. My forecast today, I usually print off, Winnipeg, we've got Brandon here, we've got Thompson, some of the main centers around the province. They all report widespread smoke, and that's going to be a huge impact on a lot of our health. This has been ongoing now for quite some time, obviously, and it's showing no signs of letting up. So how do you take care of yourself? And when should you cancel something. For example, the Canadian Football League postponed a game between Calgary and Saskatchewan a couple of weeks ago because of air quality. So what about your own backyard events or outside sporting events, for example? That's the topic of our medical column today with Dr. Raj Bhardwaj. Hi there.
Good morning, Marcy.
Well, we've certainly been dealing with this in Manitoba. What makes fire smoke such a concern for public health officials?
Yeah, I mean, inhaling fumes from anything that's burning is not, great for your body, whether that's cigarette smoke or smoke from the tailpipe of the car in front of you or a campfire or wildfire smoke. And it's a concern because smoke is this chemical soup of all sorts of things that aren't good for your body, right? Oxygen and ozone and nitrogen dioxide and carbon monoxide, and this thing called PM 2.5. That's particulate matter that's 2.5 microns in diameter. And what's a micron? In terms of millimeters, that's 0.0025 millimeters. So about 20 to 30 times smaller than the diameter of a human hair, and about 4 times smaller than a lot of pollen that gets stuck in your nose. And PM 2.5 particles, they're so tiny that they don't get stuck in your nose. They get deep into your lungs, and they even get absorbed into your blood. So a lot of people think, it's just irritating dust. It's not. These PM 2.5 particles are getting into your body. They're causing health effects. And, in the short term, there's things like the coughing and the burning eyes and the sore throat and stuff. But in the long term, there are concerns about air pollution and increased rates of heart attacks and strokes and asthma and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. And even, for fetuses exposed during pregnancy, things like, premature birth and low birth weight, as well as potential problems with their health as they grow up as well. Things like asthma and other heart or lung problems. So there's that. And then the other thing really is that because it's fire smoke and not from your personal cigarette, it's smoke that can impact thousands or even millions of people all at once. As the smoke from a wildfire blows over a city. So the potential impact to a population can be really high, even if the individual risk for you might be relatively low.
What is the smoke doing to our bodies specifically?
Yeah, so it depends on the actual chemical soup it is, but in general, it causes a lot of inflammatory changes. So part of your immune system kind of ramps up and tries to fight the threat of these particles. Other parts of your immune system end up being damaged directly by smoke exposure. So you feel that in different ways, right? In your lungs, that immune response is what triggers the coughing and, in some people, worsening of their asthma or COPD, sometimes like dangerously bad, where their oxygen levels drop and they need to be admitted to hospital. It makes your heart work harder because as your lungs don't work as well, then your heart has to work harder to maintain oxygen delivery to your organs. The inflammation can increase the risk of blood clots, which is one reason that there's a link between heart attacks and strokes and the higher levels of air pollution. And because it gets into your body, into your bloodstream, into all your organs, those PM 2.5 particles, it can take days or even weeks for your body to sort of clean those up after a significant exposure. So you might feel that, the smoke is gone and it's really nice out again, but I still feel kind of headachy and tired and wiped out and, even difficulty concentrating and stuff. And that's because of the sort of the long-term effect or at least the not short-term, not acute effects, but sort of that cleanup effect as your body tries to deal with all those little particles.
Abby has been keeping an eye on the measurement tool to see what the rating is in terms of air quality. And in Winnipeg this week, yesterday actually, we had air quality that was 10 plus on the scale, which is terrible if you know the scale. Can you talk more about that though? How people might make the decision to postpone an outdoor activity based on air quality?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? Because we all want to go and do things outdoors while we can, while the weather's good. But one of the most useful tools to sort of deciding if we should be out there or not is this thing called the Air Quality Health Index. And it's made in Canada. It's from Environment and Climate Change Canada. You can check it, you can just search Air Quality Health Index online, or it's baked into your phone's weather app, depending on which app you're using. But it's a number that goes from 1 to 10 plus. And the ratings are easy to understand. If it's low, that's the air quality health index of 1 to 3. Yeah, go outside, enjoy yourself. It's great. If it's between 4 and 6, and if you're at risk, then maybe consider rescheduling or reducing your activities outside. If you're not at risk, then, if it's moderate, if it's 4 to 6, then you're probably fine. As it gets higher into that 7 to 10 range, then everybody should consider reducing their outdoor activities. And once it hits above 10, like 10 or 10 plus, then everyone is potentially at risk for this, fire smoke exposure and health effects from it. So that's one data point. The other data point is that, if you're coughing, if your throat is sore, if your eyes are burning, then maybe it's time to get out of the smoky air. Even though you might think of yourself as being otherwise healthy, you are experiencing the effects of fire smoke. Right. So maybe get out of there and get to somewhere where the air quality is better.
Just lastly, what about people who either need to be outside or if someone's inside? How do you make sure then that the air in your inside is as good as it can be when there's a lot of smoke in the air outside?
Yeah, so two really important things to think about. If you have to be outside, then you can, try to take it easier than usual, try to take frequent breaks indoors where the air quality might be better. And you can also use a mask. Right, you can use an N95 or a P100 type respirator mask. So N95, that 95 means that it filters out 95% of those particles, those PM2.5 particles. It actually filters out 95% of even smaller particles, 0.3 microns and larger. And remember, the PM2.5s are 2.5 microns. So an N95 will filter out 95% of those as long as you've got a good fit. The P100 filters out even more, but sometimes those are a little bit harder to breathe through. Unfortunately, cloth masks and bandanas and things like that, even surgical and medical masks, are just not built to filter out particles that small, so they're much less useful. You might get 10 to 20% filtration of those tiny smoke particles. So that's if you're outside. Now, if for inside, to try to maintain good indoor air quality, again, the key is good filtration. So you can use a HEPA filter on your furnace, and if you're shopping for furnace filters, look for a rating of MERV 13. And then, with some furnace filters or some furnaces, you can sort of turn off the outdoor air intake, like close that and then put it on recirculate. So you're recirculating and cleaning the indoor air. And then the other thing you can do is you can buy HEPA air purifiers and put them in the room where you're spending most of your time, like the bedroom. And of course, close your windows so that you're not allowing smoky air to get into the house in the first place. But this is one of these things that, hopefully we don't need these sort of tips and strategies all the time. But when you do need them, it's nice to have them sort of in the back pocket of your brain and put them into use if and when the smoke hits.
All right. Thank you very much for this morning. We've got another smoky day today, smoky start to the day. So appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Dr. Raj Bhardwaj on our medical column this morning, and it is smoky. Widespread smoke across most of the province, an actual air quality warning for southern Manitoba, as well as the Paw, Flin Flon, Thompson, Nelson House, Norway House, Island Lake, and Lynn Lake, and surrounding areas, including Leaf Rapids, Puck, and Snow Lake. In Winnipeg, a high of 24 degrees. Right now, it is sunny, or trying to be sunny, where it's smokier, and it is 13 degrees. In traffic, everything should be fine, except the Louise Bridge closure, 788-3093 if you do see another problem that we should be passing along to commuters. Let's get to our headlines now with Heather Wells, who's standing by at 2 minutes to 7.
Good morning. A remote northern community wants the province to be proactive in fighting wildfires moving closer. Leaders at Opipon-Napiwin Cree Nation say firefighting crews haven't been deployed to their area, and now flames near Leaf Rapids are blocking the only access road in and out. Well, it was a heated and packed town hall in Clear Lake last night. A group called Fairness for Clear Lake pushed for Park Canada's boat ban to be lifted. That ban was introduced over the May-long weekend to stop the spread of invasive zebra mussels. We'll take you to that meeting in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
In the next hour of our show, we're going to hear from a former inmate at Stony Mountain Institution who says he spent decades going in and out of prison. He will tell us about the local nonprofit and program that helped him, he says, finally turn his life around. So what worked? Stay tuned, that's coming up. Also, how happy are you, Winnipeg? According to a recent poll, Winnipeggers score near the bottom of the happiness list. So we sent CBC's Jim Agapito out to talk to you about why. And then at just 5 years old, her son was kicked out of school. Now she's using his story to point to what she says are gaps in the system when it comes to supporting kids with ADHD.
Today on The Current.
Is a war being waged on the Sudanese people?
I'm Catherine Cullen. Even as the 2-year-old war in Sudan continues, millions of refugees are returning home, not because it's safe, but because they feel they have few options.
They might die with a bullet, or they might die of diseases, or they might die of famine.
The growing desperation for people in Sudan, coming up on The Current.
The Current, this morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Across the Pacific, some people in coastal towns and cities are being told to go to higher ground. Tsunami waves could be coming. A powerful, shallow magnitude 8.8 earthquake struck Russia's far east yesterday. It is one of the strongest quakes ever recorded. Large waves rippled out from the epicenter. A tsunami advisory is in effect for parts of coastal British Columbia, and the first swells are starting to hit Vancouver Island. Right now, they're under 30 centimeters high. The CBC's Mira Baines has the latest.
Chief Elmer Frank, the emergency coordinator for the Kla'oquiat First Nation near Tofino, was cautious after the earthquake.
Because we've seen that it's a larger earthquake than we've seen in our lifetime, in my lifetime anyway, that's that close, that could potentially affect our BC coast.
The potential of strong waves from tsunami activity along BC's west coast triggered a flurry of advisories. The earthquake struck just before 4:30 Pacific in the afternoon off the coast of eastern Russia in the Pacific Basin. People along BC's coast are being advised to avoid marinas, harbors, beaches until emergency officials say it's safe. Seismologist Tammy Mulder with Natural Resources Canada is warning that even smaller tsunami waves can be dangerous.
There are much stronger currents along the coastline up and down and very confused waters. And so it's very important for people to know that even with these lower forecasted wave heights, one still wants to be away from the water.
Emergency Management BC is warning that waves arrive in a series, and the first may not be the biggest. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
The U.S. National Weather Service says a major tsunami is not expected to hit Hawaii. The state is under a tsunami advisory. That is one step down from a warning. Commercial harbors are allowed to reopen, but weather officials say strong currents and changes in sea levels may still happen all along the coasts. Hawaii's Governor Josh Green says the state is keeping a close eye on the waves.
So far, we have not seen a wave of consequence, which is great relief to us. It's kind of a blessing to not be reporting any damage. We have seen significant water recede several times in Haleiwa, and there were 2 waves that were measured coming through the Midway Atoll.
Northern California is under a tsunami warning right now. Waves just over a meter high were measured in Crescent City. That is just south of the border with Oregon. In Japan, officials are taking no chances. Nearly 2 million people are under evacuation advisories, though the country has just downgraded its tsunami warnings to advisories. Kaz Boivin reports from Tokyo.
Civil defense sirens wail in Japan's northern prefecture of Hokkaido as officials warn a tsunami of up to 3 meters high could soon crash into the coast. People flee to rooftops or take to the roads in bumper-to-bumper traffic up hillsides. So far, at least one person has died in the scramble to reach safety. A 58-year-old woman in central Japan whose car careened down a cliffside after her city was placed under a tsunami advisory. It's been almost a decade and a half since a powerful tremor and subsequent tsunami devastated parts of eastern Japan, especially the Tohoku region, home to the Fukushima nuclear plant. Workers decommissioning that facility are among those who've been forced to move to higher ground. By late afternoon, there were reports of tsunami waves of more than a meter high reaching some areas. No major damage yet, but it's too early to rest easy. Because the quake happened so far away, bigger waves could still be on the way. Kaz Boivin for CBC News, Tokyo.
CBC News has learned Canada is considering whether to recognize Palestinian statehood. A government source says Prime Minister Mark Carney is expected to raise the issue at a virtual cabinet meeting later today. The UK said yesterday it will recognize a Palestinian state in September unless Israel agrees to a ceasefire. Megan Fitzpatrick is in our parliamentary bureau. And Megan, what is Canada's path to considering Palestinian statehood?
Yeah, so the timing of this consideration comes as other G7 nations have made announcements in recent days. So yesterday it was the UK and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer saying they would recognize a Palestinian state in September unless Israel agrees to a ceasefire in Gaza, and other conditions were attached to that. We know Prime Minister Mark Carney and Starmer did speak by phone yesterday about this decision. When France made its decision that it would recognize statehood in September, it did not attach any conditions to that commitment. So when Prime Minister Mark Carney was asked Monday if Canada would follow France's decision, he did say that Canada supports a two-state solution, a quote, free and viable Palestine living in peace and side by side in peace and security with Israel. So he didn't quite give a yes or no, but we do know that that issue will be discussed with Cabinet this afternoon. A former Canadian diplomat who served at the UN, Louise Blais, said on Power and Politics last night that France is likely leading the way on rallying other G7 countries, including Canada, to join their position.
And I think there was a lot of corridor and a lot of meetings at the UN over the past 2 days behind the scenes to try to get a lot of European countries and Canada to follow suit.
And she thinks Canada's position is shifting slightly, in part because of the humanitarian suffering in Gaza right now. She was referring there to the meetings at the UN this week, a conference organized in part by France, where the two-state solution was discussed. We'll have to watch and see if anything comes out of this cabinet meeting this afternoon, and if Canada does make any announcements.
Thank you, Megan.
You're welcome.
Megan Fitzpatrick reporting from Ottawa. The Bank of Canada will release its latest interest rate this morning, and the benchmark rate has been sitting at 2.75% since March. As senior business reporter Nisha Patel tells us, many economists are not expecting another cut.
The bank is going to continue to hold.
Economists, including RBC's Claire Fan, are nearly unanimous. The Bank of Canada is likely to hold its key interest rate steady at 2.75% for the third time in a row.
Some of the data on the economy that we've seen have pointed to surprisingly more strength and resilience in both sort of labor market as well as underlying inflation. So I think
Canada added a surprising 83,000 jobs in June, and core inflation has been stuck near 3% since April. That's eased the pressure for further interest rate cuts. In fact, Fan predicts the central bank is done lowering rates for now.
Again, there's a lot of resilience in terms of consumer spending and early signs of housing market activities kind of recovering as well. Our outlook for the second half of the year is really for this sort of slower growth, but not really contractionary sort of state to continue.
Not all experts agree, with some expecting 2 more cuts starting in the fall. Forecasts could change quickly depending on how the U.S. trade war plays out. So far, the damage has largely been contained to 3 industries: autos, steel, and aluminum, though Canada faces a 35% tariff on some exports if a deal isn't reached by August 1st. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Ticks are expanding their range into new parts of the country. That expanded territory brings an increased risk of tick-borne illnesses. As Jennifer Yoon tells us, scientists say Canadian authorities must find new ways to stop the spread of the disease-carrying bugs.
You can create clear pathways.
Nagaralmia is demonstrating how she's made her backyard less welcoming for ticks.
Ticks don't like hard surfaces, so using concrete, rocks, wood chips, gravel.
Almia is a scientist at Canada's National Collaborating Centre for Environmental Health.
So like planting plants that are resistant to deer and rodents, like lavender is really good.
And she says efforts like this are crucial as tick populations appear in areas they never have before, thanks to a changing climate.
So Canada-wide, we're seeing ticks are expanding northwards into new territories.
As tick populations increase, so are the number of people showing up with tick-borne illnesses, some of which can become serious, according to Dr. Gerald Evans, an infectious disease specialist at Queen's University. And it's not just Lyme disease.
We've now seen the rise of another infection called anaplasmosis. And then very, very recently, within the last year or two, we've begun to see cases of a parasitic infection called babesiosis.
Evans says tracking the number of people getting sick with tick-borne illnesses is crucial to curbing the spread.
And I think we're getting better and better at that, but we're still not perfect.
Elmia says she'd like to see a comprehensive surveillance program across Canada, and for people to take precautions when they're spending time near ticks, like tucking their pants into their socks, using tick repellent, and checking their bodies thoroughly after spending time outdoors. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning. You're with Information Radio on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. This hour on the show, when a Winnipeg mother learned her son was being kicked out of his private school at 5 years old, she says she couldn't believe what she was hearing.
Do you think you're sending your child to school every day with adults who are going to care for them, love them? Just made me realize that my son was being bullied by adults.
We will dig into the details of this case specifically. She wonders if there was more that could have been done to prevent this. That conversation is coming up. It is 7:10 a.m. In addition to that, this hour on the show, a local nonprofit organization is helping men who have been released from prison stay out of prison. A former inmate from Stony Mountain is going to join us in studio to tell us how this group, he says, changed his life. And how happy are you, Winnipeg? According to a recent poll, Winnipeggers score near the bottom of the happiness list. CBC's Jim Agapito talked to a number of people about this on the street. We're going to hear that at 7:40. Right now, Heather Wells is here live with our news headlines.
Good morning. Well, Winnipeg home care workers and clients say they are frustrated over a new centralized scheduling system. The Winnipeg Regional Health Authority implemented the system nearly 5 months ago to try to improve the service, but the system's being described as disruptive and causing absolute chaos. We're going to hear from a patient who says clients don't know who's coming or when. And a local business leader is optimistic after hearing from the U.S. ambassador to Canada. Ambassador Pete Hoekstra spoke to about 200 people at a Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce meeting yesterday. We'll take you there in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, we've been hearing a lot in the news as well about, just in addition, about Louise Bridge. And so I want to mention that, of course, that remains closed this morning. But we don't have any other major problems in traffic to tell you about. I do want to mention 511. It is a resource for you to find out about the highways and what's going on with smoky conditions, because still in some parts of our province we have road closures and detours because of wildfires and such. So you probably want to check that before you head out anywhere, especially in this time of travel, right? We're still in summer and travel season. But otherwise, the commute seems to be cooperating this morning. If you do see some problems, you can call Sierra Sanders on the traffic line, and that number is 788-3093. Now, speaking of wildfires, Abby's been also noticing that in his forecast this morning. Hi, Abby.
Hi, Marcy. Smoke is the main story this morning. We're looking at smoke blanketing the skies from the north into the southern part of the province. We still have air quality warnings in place for most of the regions, talking about Winnipeg all the way down to the Interlake region, the Parkland region, and even a central part of the province, the Powerful Flint Thompson. We're seeing air quality warnings, air quality levels remaining really, really poor. We're talking about the indexes around 10 plus this morning, which means the smoke will be affecting everyone. So I would advise you to spend less time outside. Conditions in Winnipeg right now, we are at 14 degrees. It's mainly sunny but smoky outside. Through the day, the smoke will continue to hang in the air. We're going to see temperatures warm up to 24 this afternoon. The humidity is going to make it feel warmer than that. And then as we get into the evening period, we're going to see the skies gradually clearing, but those hazy conditions will still linger. We'll see temperatures fall below 10 degrees at that point. In the southern part of the province, the Red River, the Pembina Valley, the Interlake region, we're seeing temperatures sitting between 8 and 14. A mix of sun and clouds today, and conditions will stay hazy for most of this regions. Temperatures getting close to 26, while up north, we're talking about smoky and cooler start to the day. We're seeing 6 to 11 degrees, and most of the regions will be warming up close to 28 degrees today. But to wrap it up, it's more like smoky skies in the province. Hazy conditions dominate the forecast today. So just take it easy out there and spend less time outside if you are affected by the smoke.
Well, as I mentioned off the top of the hour here, a local organization, a nonprofit organization in Manitoba, is helping inmates who've recently been released from prison stay on the right path. Future Hope works with men incarcerated at Stony Mountain Institution. Their mission is to set up inmates for success once they're released. The men are helped with all kinds of things like housing, jobs, and other supports to help them transition back into society. Our next guest says the organization changed his life. Mario Tranzo is a former inmate at Stony Mountain, and he joins us live in studio. Nice to meet you. Thanks for being here.
Nice to meet you too.
Also in studio is Kim McIntyre at Layton, who is the coordinator of the Next Step program at Future Hope. Hi, Kim.
Hi, good morning.
So tell us first, just before we turn to Mario and his story, which sounds like it's your program had quite an impact, but about the specific supports that that we're talking about that an inmate might need when they're released from prison.
Yeah, I mean, it can be such an overwhelming experience, and specifically if people have been incarcerated for either a long period of time or various periods of time over an extended period of time. So one of the things that many people find they need is their identification. They might need a bank account. They might need a doctor. They might need help with employment. Life just might be overwhelming. There could be some need with addiction or sobriety. Could be just talking to people, spending time, just reintegrating yourself, reconnecting with family, friends, just trying to re-navigate what it looks like to be back in community.
Does Next Step, which is a program under Future Hope, as I mentioned, does it work with peer support, and how does it connect to housing? Because I know that's often one of the initial issues.
Yeah, so our peer support group is it's really the cornerstone of what we do, and the whole idea is that there are men who have been incarcerated before, have spent time in the community, and they do peer support with each other. And it's very much to see how that path went along for them, to help support each other along the way, help navigate, showing that things can be done, how it worked for other people. And then we have a group of volunteers as well that work with the men in the peer support group. So we're sort of a circle of support that we do with each other. And we do have 2 transitional homes as well. And that's where the fellows can come and live with us in a transitional setting once they've completed their time in a halfway house.
Mario, I mentioned that you have said that this changed your life. Is that right?
It has, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So tell me what worked for you and what supports were really important for you.
What worked for me was being able to have someone outside of corrections that I could trust, because trust is the big issue for most of the guys coming out of the penitentiary. They're programmed so much in there to not trust counselors and psychologists, people that they're put in the corrections to help, so-called help, but they write negative reports on you at the end. But to get out and to have a refreshing start and to have met Kim after Kathleen, the last person that was there before Kim, and then I met Kim, and most definitely having those supports and knowing that you can pick up that phone at any time and there'll be somebody at the other end is a great help.
Why did that work for you? Like, why did you trust them? What was it about? Did they always pick up, or was it something about how they interacted with you? Why
it's
did you
how
trust
they
them?
interacted with me, and I was very close with the nun who started the organization. What was it? How many years ago?
24.
24 years ago.
Okay, so you had some kind of a historical
I had a
relationship.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
When you think about your own journey and your own story, and I know you've shared, we can talk about this. You were in and out of prison, right?
I have been.
Yeah.
For a long time.
For how long? When were you first charged with?
My first time I went to prison, I was 22. I was freshly out of university.
How old are you now, Mario?
I'm 57.
Yeah. And I understand drug-related offenses over the years. Is that right? Yeah. So how did you got involved with Future Hope through the nun you mentioned? This is Sister Carol, I think I have her name right. Yeah. So she was the chaplain at Stony, and she shared this about it. But yet that was years ago, and here we are today. So what convinced you? What was it that got you to say, okay, I'm going to go for this? I'm going to see if this works.
This time around, what happened is my dad passed away while I was awaiting sentencing to go to Stony Mountain. And I hadn't been to Stony in quite a few years at this point. And I didn't have the supports that I had 15 years ago, 20 years ago. My dad passed away. My brother broke ties with me. He didn't want anything to do with any of the shenanigans anymore. So I reached out to Father Cease at a remand center, and I said, what can I do to get some supports in the community for when I get out? And he recommended this, and then it came back to me. I'm like, I didn't even think about Sister Carol's program.
It's very interesting connecting, reoffending with lack of support.
It's huge. It's not having somebody or some people there to be around you to show you how to live a pro-social life makes it so difficult for someone coming out of prison. Like, a lot of people say, oh, this guy's from prison. Yeah, but you know what? He's living next door to you. So do you want a guy living next door to you that's freshly out of prison, that's got no supports, and that has nothing in place for his life? Or do you want a person coming out of prison that's working on his life? Maybe his life isn't perfect, but it's 100 yards further ahead than it was when he walked out of prison because of this program.
I know you're now 7 years sober.
December 22nd.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Hard work. I also understand that one of the biggest things that they helped you with is, Kim was talking about some practical things, housing, identification, which are all critical. Mm-hmm. But I understand one of the things for you was learning to deal with emotions.
Yeah, most definitely.
What do you mean by that?
For so many years through my addiction, I've never dealt with emotions. A big one for me is loss. I never knew what kind of emotions or feelings you would feel when you lose someone that you care about, because I was always under the influence of drugs, and it suppressed all my feelings. And after the third month of my sobriety, it was like a tidal wave of feelings and emotions, and many of nights, and I'm not afraid to admit it, many of nights being locked up in my cell and crying and not knowing why I'm crying, and to get in touch with those emotions that, they're very close to your heart, to your brain, and putting them together. It was difficult, and this lady was sitting beside me, God bless her soul, she's always there, and she'll always take the time to help you understand if you're thinking in the wrong direction, in the negative direction,
You have someone to talk to about it.
she knows how to put you back on track and to understand that you're not an inmate no more. You're not part of the system anymore. You're in society. In society, that's not acceptable behavior. You have to act like.
You share your story like this with other men as well in the peer support group.
I do.
What's it like now to see yourself on a new path and also to give that to others?
It's a good feeling. It's a really good feeling. It's reassuring to myself that I'm doing the right thing, and it fulfills. I guess we can go to the 12-step program. Giving back is receiving, and
one of the steps.
in order to keep what you have to give back.
I just so appreciated talking to you. Poor Kim's sitting here.
it's all good.
I do want to ask you a question because I don't want to run out of time. What's demand like for your programs, and what additional supports could help with the work you're doing, which obviously has impacted Mario and others so greatly?
Yeah, no, thank you. We do meet with fellows while they're incarcerated, and so that's to build the relationship as much as we can prior to people coming into community, and that helps with our supports. And we certainly we're very much a community organization. We depend on donations and that sort of thing. We don't have funding from government or anything like that. So we always are looking for more resources to support more people because there are many, many men out there who would like to have that support. So we do have a website, www.futurehope.ca, where we talk about all the other things that are available to our organization.
It's been amazing meeting you, Kim, and hearing your story, Mario. Thank you. I heard you might want to open an Italian food truck in the future.
Yeah.
Call if that happens.
I will. I'll park out front.
Take care. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Have a good day.
That's Kim McIntyre-Layton, coordinator of the Next Step program at Future Hope, and Mario Tronzo, Future Hope participant and former inmate at Stony Mountain, talking about the difference that it made in his life and how it changed his life. If you want to read more, you can go to their website as mentioned at futurehope.ca.
Ever hear a really good radio show and fall in love right away? Fall in love at first listen with the CBC Listen app. Find CBC radio shows like As It Happens and Now or Never and stream them anytime, anywhere for free. Download CBC Listen today.
7:26 a.m. is the time right now, and we got to move on to morning sports. Now we have developing news in hockey. Scott Regatta, what's going on?
Developing good news from a Winnipeg Jets standpoint, Marcy. The team has avoided arbitration and agreed to terms with key defenseman Dylan Samberg on a 3-year extension. It'll pay Dylan Samberg a lot more than he was making before, just short of $6 million a season, which, as I say, is a big raise. He was making about 1.5 previously, but he has emerged as one of the club's top defenders, plays in the top 4 alongside Neil Pionk, great 5-on-5 shorthanded. He has really developed well. Little disappointed maybe from a Jets standpoint with the term of this deal. Would have thought they'd like to sign him to maybe a 6-year plus sort of contract. But Samberg, who knows what he's going to be worth 3 years further down the road. But this extends their competitive window, the Jets. They had the best D in the league last season, not just because of Connor Hellebuck, but because of that strong core in front of him, including Dylan Samberg.
Very good news, yeah. All right, let's go to baseball. There was some strange goings-on in Baltimore.
Strange in that the division-leading Blue Jays, Marcy, got beaten in both games of a doubleheader against the cellar-dwelling Orioles. And strange in that pitcher Seranthony Dominguez was part of the winning team in the first contest and the losing team in the second. Dominguez, a flame-throwing reliever, was traded from the Orioles to the Jays in between their 2 games yesterday. In fact, Dominguez pitched a scoreless 7th inning for Toronto in the nightcap. To make room on the roster, the Jays had to remove Chad Green from it. And Eric Lauer, who started yesterday's second contest, says the comings and goings were not easy.
Felt like I got pretty ready, even though I had to say bye to a good friend and say hi to a new one. Kind of a weird feeling. You try to mix in your hellos and goodbyes pretty quick. It's nice because you're like, oh, we got a new guy. We got to welcome him in. But it's just a funny part of the game that can even happen.
It wouldn't be crazy, Marcy, to see more player movement today. After all, the trade deadline is just over 24 hours away. The Jays in a buyer's role, the Orioles selling. And in the meantime, for those wondering about Toronto's newest player's name, Sir Anthony says he thinks his parents gave it to him after watching a TV character, maybe played by Sir Anthony Hopkins.
That's my guess.
We'll have to dig into that. I should mention locally in ball, the Gold Ice, they lost narrowly to Fargo Moorhead. Those same two teams will play again tonight. 6:30 is the first pitch.
Now, the only good news there, even though the Gold Eyes loss was apparently it was a beautiful night at the ballpark last night.
With baseball, that's half the battle from a fan's perspective.
From a fan's perspective, yeah, our director was there. All right, let's finish with what's going to be a busy day in both swimming and tennis.
Yeah, 4 Canadians left at tennis's Canadian Open, and there might have been 5. Marcy, had Leylah Fernandez not been so exhausted in her opening match. After winning the City Open in Washington, D.C. on Sunday, Fernandez says she was assured she'd have at least until late last night in Montreal before she was expected to play. Tournament organizers made her play early in the morning yesterday. She looked exhausted. She lost in straight sets, and she was quite upset after that, understandably. So we have, in the women's draw, Victoria Mboko and Jeannie Bouchard. In the men's, Gabriel Diallo and Felix Auger-Aliassime remaining. And swimming note, coming up in about 20 minutes at the World Aquatic Championships in Singapore, Canada with a very good chance at a medal in the mixed medley 4x100 meter relay. CBC will be live streaming that.
Go get it. All right, thank you.
You bet.
That is Scott Rick live with Sports on CBC. Your commute, fine so far. Call if not, 788-3093. Still ahead. We are going to hear more about how happy people are or aren't in this country. And here in Manitoba, we ranked in a recent poll among the least happy people in Canada. We're going to hear more after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 7:30, 14 degrees. Another smoky day. Another air quality warning with wildfire smoke widespread throughout southern Manitoba. A high today of 24. Expect the smoke situation to begin to improve later today. 300 people from the community of Cormorant are out of their homes this morning as wildfire threatens the town about 80 kilometers north of the Paw. Amy Ryan says they were told Monday night to have their bags packed and be ready to leave. Then the wind changed direction, pushing the fire right towards Cormorant. Yesterday, they were told they had an hour to get out.
It really scared me when the sirens were going off and the fire truck was going around with the big microphone, telling everyone that it was an hour notice and we all had to meet at the school. There was buses waiting for everybody.
Ryan packed up belongings for herself and her 3 children, including a 6-month-old baby. She says it was chaos at the school where people were registering and boarding buses to go to RBC Convention Centre in Winnipeg. Ryan says she went to the Paw instead to stay with her sister. A remote northern community wants the province to be proactive fighting wildfires moving closer to them. Leaders at Opipon-Napiwin Cree Nation say firefighting crews haven't been deployed to their area. And now, flames near Leaf Rapids are blocking the only access road in and out. MKO Grand Chief Garrison Settee says the community's in danger.
How critical the situation is here is pretty apparent. And the nation is in a very vulnerable state. The existential threat of wildfires puts them even more at risk.
More than 900 people are still in the community, while a couple hundred vulnerable people were sent to Winnipeg earlier this month. The province says 127 active wildfires are burning. Winnipeg home care workers and clients say they're frustrated over a new centralized scheduling system. The Winnipeg Regional Health Authority implemented the system nearly 5 months ago to try to improve the service, but patients like George Cannell don't know who's coming or when.
Oh yeah, we talk about it all the time about home care. It's like a running, oh, did your home care person show up? No, mine didn't come today. Did yours? Yeah, you know what I mean?
Health Minister Uzoma Asseguera acknowledges the change has been disruptive, but says efforts are focused on improving the centralized rollout. Most of BC's coast is under a tsunami advisory this morning. The province's Emergency Information Agency says tsunami waves less than 30 centimeters high were forecast to reach Tofino. A powerful magnitude 8.8 earthquake off Russia's far east triggered the waves, sparking evacuation orders right across the Pacific. In BC, officials are encouraging people in the affected areas to stay away from the shoreline. You can hear the latest on the tsunami warnings coming up on World Report at 8. A local business leader is optimistic after hearing from the U.S. ambassador to Canada. Pete Hoekstra spoke to about 200 people at a Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce meeting yesterday. He also met with a smaller group of about 20 business leaders and politicians. WinPAC Vice President Randy Zasitko was part of that meeting. He says the ambassador's words left him feeling positive about the prospects of the U.S. and Canada patching up their months-long trade dispute.
I was encouraged. I think he personally understands the connection between the two of us and the fact that we are so closely connected and so intertwined.
Despite recent tariff talk from U.S. President Trump, Hoekstra says a continent-wide free trade zone is still possible. Well, at a heated and packed town hall last night, the group Fairness for Clear Lake pushed for Park Canada's boat ban to be lifted. That ban was introduced over May-long weekend to stop the spread of invasive zebra mussels in Clear Lake. Fairness for Clear Lake says cottage and business owners have been left out of decision-making. Trevor Boquest says boats need to be back on the water.
There's really no scientific support that says that boats would have affected the spread of mussels. Like, the mussels are already in the water. They spread over 18 months with no boats in the water.
Parks Canada says it's studying the spread of zebra mussels and how it is affected by boats. The results will be analyzed this fall. People keen on preserving Winnipeg's heritage history worry about Louise Bridge, that it may not reopen at all. The 115-year-old bridge was set to welcome traffic again this week after repairs. However, unforeseen issues are pushing that reopening to early September. A similar situation happened in 2023 when the historic Arlington Bridge was determined to be too far gone to repair. It has been closed indefinitely since then. Cindy Tugwell at Heritage Winnipeg says the Louise Bridge is too important to suffer the same fate.
I think it's huge. I think originally it was the first permanent bridge, and I think there was a comment made in some of the literature that I think it changed Canadian history.
It is hoped further repairs planned for 2028 will extend the life of the Louise Bridge by another 30 years. You can read more about the Louise Bridge and other Manitoba news. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather Wells.
Thank you.
Abby Adeyemi is our senior tech on the show and also covers the forecast. It's time for your regional forecast on CBC.
Yes, we're still seeing the smoke stretching from the northern into the southern part of the province, with air quality warnings affecting a lot of regions, and the risk level is pretty on the high side, +10 with that air quality health index in some spot, which means I'd advise limit your time outside, and if it's affecting you, just go inside. Winnipeg, 14 degrees at this time, mainly sunny, widespread smoke still lingering through the day with calm winds and highs near 24 today. Skies will clear, but some local smoke will still remain overnight, and tomorrow looks sunny again with more smoke. Down in the Pembina Valley region, more than Winkler and Morris down to the U.S. border, we're seeing 12 degrees this morning. Smoke will continue through the day under clear skies for that region. Also, some winds coming from the north will make it feel mild. Today's high gets to 24. In the Westman region, Brandon is seeing mostly cloudy conditions at this time, 10 degrees. North easterly winds making it really feel light. The smoke is hanging in the air, and we're going to see that continue into the evening. High will touch 24, and then we'll see some clear skies later tonight. Gimli is at 7 degrees with mostly smoky conditions in the region, also with the winds coming from the north west, and it's feeling very light in that part of the province today. High around 24. One thing I noticed, Marcy, is the winds are kind of light. It's been light. You won't feel feel any movement. So it's pretty light in most of the regions down south today. The powerful influence, we're seeing 8 degrees, cloudy conditions, smoky conditions also hanging out through the day. Also calm winds high around 24. And then Thompson is mainly sunny, 6 degrees, calm winds, smoke also through the day into the evening, high 22. It's going to be warmer tomorrow. We're going to see highs around 26. And then further north in Churchill, mostly cloudy, 11 degrees. The winds coming from the northwest. The skies will stay clear by the midday period, and we'll see temperatures only get to 19, 20. Most of the regions seeing clear skies tonight. Winnipeg, we are at 14 degrees. It's smoky and sunny outside.
Traffic's fine, so let's hit the street with a question Jim Agapito looked at. It's out of a poll we're going to talk about Canada and happiness. Canada overall is a happy place, but people in our province could be happier. This is according to a recent Leger poll. They surveyed almost 40,000 adults in March and April online. Our province was second last in happiness, just in front of Prince Edward Island. 40% of Manitobans surveyed reported being unhappy. And only people surveyed in Toronto, when you looked at the city results, reported being less happy than Winnipeggers. As mentioned, we sent CBC's Jim Agapito out to see if Winnipeggers agree.
My name's Kaylin Mercer. I'm 28. I feel like I'm not surprised. I just feel I've been coast to coast in Canada, and it seems like a lot of other places there is like more things to do. I don't know, but I also feel like I wouldn't want to live anywhere else at the same time.
Okay, tell me about that.
I feel like the cost of living is higher in other places. I do know when I went to the East Coast, it was like definitely not as expensive as the West Coast. I know some people that lived in Toronto that have had hard times and stuff, so I think the cost of living definitely is just better here. And it feels like home.
It feels like home. Is this originally where home is?
Yeah.
Jackson Ray, 18.
What do you think of those results?
I do get it. I mean, like, I'm happy here, but I see why people would kind of hate it. It's awful in the winters, awful in the summers. Weather's never really nice outside of fall, so.
My name is Brian Youngson, 71 coming up. I'm kind of surprised at that, especially Prince Edward Island, because I thought, well, that's quite a place to be and probably more temperate climate than, say, Manitoba. Yeah, I would thought it would be a little bit higher. Maybe it's because of the recent crime wave and all that kind of stuff that's maybe lowered that score, so.
Are you happy living here in Manitoba?
I live in Beausejour, born and raised in Winnipeg though, so I know a lot about Winnipeg. And I've been in Beausejour now about 5 years, so we're happy out there for sure. A little less slower pace out there than in here.
Samuel Kodzi. I am 19 years old. I mean, it's not good at all. If people aren't happy here, it's because of the weather and the construction.
So are you happy then living here in Winnipeg?
I'm pretty happy. I see the beauty in Winnipeg, 100%.
Is there a place that you would rather be living that would make you happier?
Well, yeah, 100%. I can think of tons of places, but it's not because I dislike this place. It's because there's so many amazing places to go.
Alvaro Salas. Honestly, I think it makes sense to a certain extent. I can see why people would be unhappy here. I think, yeah, it depends on the age group too, but it doesn't surprise me.
Are you happy living here in Winnipeg?
I would say I'm happy due to certain lifestyle opportunities that Winnipeg gives you as opposed to different countries.
Is there a place that would make you happier in Canada?
Yeah, there are. In terms of happiness, because I feel like that happiness can be described in many different ways. In terms of entertainment-wise, yeah, there are other places I'd rather live, but for lifestyle, I do enjoy Winnipeg.
I don't know, honestly. I'm pretty happy here, even with all the terrible weather.
Is there a place that you'd rather be that you think would make you happier, though?
I don't think so, no. I quite like being here.
Overall, are you then happy with your life right now?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, I am. I'm just doing school. U of M is cheap. That helps us out a lot. You know, that's very helpful to students.
I think I am. I mean, I'm not doing too much with my life, but I am rather happy. I have good friends.
Yeah, I am. I think it's heading in the right direction. I'm studying too at the U of M. Yeah, I'm just really building on gaining my independence here right now.
What would you tell other people listening here? How do we bump Manitoba up higher on this list?
I think a lot of people are actually shocked to know that there's a lot of beauty in Manitoba. So I'm a grade 7 teacher, and my students had literally no idea about Steep Rock, and I was showing them pictures of Steep Rock, Manitoba, and they were in shock that could even exist in Manitoba. So maybe if there was more advertisement around what is available to do in Manitoba, that would probably help.
Well, enjoy what we have here for sure. Beautiful day out here, especially the summers. Winters, I could say, can be a little nasty. But if you come here in the summer, I mean, we've been vacationing down in the U.S. kind of thing. Maybe it's not the thing to do right now, but we've been down there, and we always tell our friends we meet down there that are living in the U.S., come up to Manitoba, come up to Winnipeg, come and enjoy what we have here. You'd be surprised what we have here, but don't come in the winter.
That was CBC's Jim Agapito asking Winnipeggers how happy they are. Now, according to the Leger poll, the happiest city in Canada is, in case you didn't read it, that's my drum roll, Mississauga, Ontario. Mississauga. Now, the poll was conducted in March and April of this year online. They surveyed almost 40,000 adults in Canada about it. Because it was an online poll, though, there is no margin of error, but a poll with this many respondents would typically have a margin of error of about 0.33%, 19 times out of 20.
As wildfires impact our province, keep up to date with CBC. For the latest information, listen to CBC Radio 1. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba or the CBC News app. For people who have a limited data plan or are running into spotty mobile service on the road, visit cbc.ca/lite. That's cbc.ca/LITE.
Still ahead, speaking of wildfires, how are young people in Manitoba dealing with climate anxiety, given the change this year and the extremes and the fires? A panel of Gen Zers is going to join us in studio live after 8 o'clock to talk about that. Stay tuned. Right now on the program, a feature interview with a Winnipeg mother who has spent the last month trying to prepare her son for first grade. But she says it's a challenge to prepare him because he doesn't know what the future holds. CBC has agreed to withhold her identity to protect her 5-year-old son. Last year, he was enrolled in St. John Brebeuf Catholic School, a private Catholic school in Winnipeg. But after several behavioral outbursts with other kids on the playground and meetings with the schools, she was told her son was no longer welcome to attend the school this upcoming school year. The mother says her son is 5 years old and was recently diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. She wonders if the school did all it could to help her son with the supports he needed, or if he fell victim to what she calls a broken system. Hello.
Good morning, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today.
Thanks for being with us. So, can you give us some examples of what you described as, bad behavior that your son was being written up for at school?
So in particular, the behavior that he was getting written up for often would be defined as defiant behavior. So that would be, not listening or not being able to sit still during circle time when they'd sit on the carpet, or even just during gym class, playing with other friends, sometimes forgetting to keep his hands to himself more, situations like that.
So things like speaking during class. Did he actually? There were some other examples where he was also hitting maybe another kid.
Yeah. So for me, young boys, when they play, they can play a lot rougher than girls. Let's say, right? So he has a best friend of his who the two of them would wrestle, run around the playground, right? And he was wrestling with one of his best friends, actually. And that scenario in itself there, he got in trouble because he didn't stop wrestling when he was told to stop playing and keep his hands to himself, which ties back in with his ADHD and just learning the impulse control.
So that would have been wrestling with that friend. And then the other family involved in that, I understand, also even weighed in. Is that right?
Yeah, they did. The mom had a phone call with the vice principal explaining that this was not a malicious scenario, that there was no bullying, that these two boys are strong friends, and that she was disappointed at how they were handling the situation.
And that we're highlighting this wrestling incident because it was the last incident at the school. And was that the incident that led to his enrollment being revoked?
Yes.
Okay. I do want to outline some other incidents just because as we learn more about what happened here, I think it's important. I understand he had hit other kids in the shins with hockey sticks and maybe even spit in another kid's face. Is that right?
Yeah, and I'll add that the other, these scenarios, they sound so forward, but when you know the context of what led up to these events, it's a lot better to have an understanding. So, for example, the scenario about spitting in another friend's face, that other friend spat first, my son then reacted and spat back. It was never out of malicious intent either, but it's two 5-year-olds who are learning boundaries, right? If you're constantly harping on one child specifically, giving them a hard time for their behaviors that they're learning how to control, and you're getting mad at them over and over again. And so, for example, my son would get sent to the hallway to go stand in the hallway because he wouldn't sit still or listen. So he's standing in the hallway. And then because he can't stand still in the hallway by himself, because how is a child supposed to regulate their emotions alone? They can't yet at 5 years old. So when he's standing in the hallway and can't do that on his own, he then gets in trouble again and gets sent to the principal's office.
Because of standing in the hallway, or?
Because he's standing in the hallway, but he's not doing it quiet enough. The problem isn't that the child is in trouble for not being able to sit still. You know what I mean? The child's just getting in trouble because the adults in the room don't have the resources or don't care to have the patience to work with the children.
And we'll walk through a lot of these things. I just wanted to start with the incidents. How did you react when you were told your son would no longer be welcome to attend the school next year, which is this upcoming school year?
Oh, I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked and surprised that with 5 days of school left, that the school would do that. My son had a great last few months of school, and so I had no issues. I wasn't getting phone calls from the school. We were already looking into the signing up for hockey program next year at the school. So we were all set to go again next year. So it was quite a surprise when we found out that he wasn't welcomed back.
You mentioned supports. What supports were offered by the school after the ADHD diagnosis was there?
So there were no new supports given by the school. When I told them about the diagnosis, the only thing that did happen is my son was diagnosed. I had a psychologist come in who did the diagnosis. She came into the school. She got to observe for an afternoon and witness what went on in the classroom. And the feedback I got back from this professional who specializes in behavior for children was that my son was not the only one with behavior needs. There's multiple kids in there who need help, and that the school is lacking many resources. And that's why your son's struggling, is honestly because of the support that's lacking in the school. The ideal situation would be he could go to a resource room with an EA who could work with him, regulate him, and he gets to join the classroom again. But instead, they don't have that. So his only option is to go stand in the hallway or to go sit in the principal's office.
So this is not just speaking to supports for your son, but you've alluded to the fact that you feel that there's not enough supports overall in the school, or maybe there aren't.
No, there isn't.
So before he was diagnosed, then obviously I asked after diagnosis what supports were there. You said there was, but even before then, I guess like there's no supports, period. There wasn't ever anything there that was.
No, the supports that were there, were basically us. I, as a parent, felt like I had all the pressure to kind of figure this out for my son and tell the teacher what to do to help him. And I said, can you send him to the reception, to the office once in the morning to kind of do like a walk around the block, get his legs moving, get him out of the classroom, give him a chore, fidget spinners, like different ideas that I gave as a parent, but I'm not the professional, right? So I expected better from a school of educators, that they would know how to handle these types of situations. So then when I did have the psychologist come in and she gave recommendations to the kindergarten teacher, and they were a sticker chart. So throughout the day, if he completed his tasks, he would get a sticker. And then as well, she told the kindergarten teacher, please give him 2 positive comments in the morning, 2 positive comments in the afternoon. So the teacher started implementing this after spring break, when we came back after the spring break. And it is amazing at how much better his days were. And I wasn't getting phone calls home, and I wasn't getting emails home. So it was crazy to me as a parent that here I am paying almost $3,000 to have my child assessed, for them to tell an educator to give my son positive reinforcement, which is something that I've been telling the teacher to do all year. And so it really just tells me that it's a very toxic, negative environment in that school.
You alluded to, you said earlier, imagine what that's like for him. So what has the impact of all of this been on your 5-year-old son?
You know what? It did. I'll say it did, because this was in the past now. It did take a toll on his mental health. My son went from going to school excited and happy to all of a sudden not wanting to go to school, refusing to get dressed. And then he would start to talk negative self-talk to himself, saying, I'm a bad kid. And the great thing is now that school has ended and we've been a full month out, I can see the changes in my son, that he's back to his normal self. He's not dysregulated anymore.
The school has refused to give us comment, so we tried to go into some understanding of their operations. So according to the school's student handbook on behavior, students have to be written up 10 times before they're considered for disenrollment. What's your thought on someone listening that says that your son had multiple chances to improve his behavior? And I hope that doesn't come out too bluntly or insensitively.
You know what? I would tell them that my son was 4 years old going into kindergarten and is now 5. And I would let them know that if they read anything on ADHD, that my son was set up to fail, and that all the things he got written up for were things that could have been prevented if the right resources were there for my son.
Why did you want to send him to a private school?
I sent him to this school because it was a full-time kindergarten program. And as a single mom, I needed full-time kindergarten. And financially, it made more sense for me to put him in that program than it would be to, let's say, hire a nanny to stay and babysit him at home for me.
Why did you want to share your story publicly?
We need to start holding private schools accountable, because it's unacceptable that there's private schools here in the city who accept public funding from the government, and then they're also accepting big donations from families with money, but then they get to selectively choose which students they want in, and they're removing a child with a disability. If public schools need a resource center for kids to go to who need extra help, then so should private schools if they're accepting public funding.
Thank you very much for being with us this morning and sharing what happened with your little boy.
Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it.
CBC has reached out to St. John Brebeuf Catholic School. The school, as I alluded to there in the conversation, wouldn't comment on the type of supports for kids living with disabilities. The head of the school board also said it would not comment on this mother's case. CBC also reached out to the province. A spokesperson confirms that St. John Brebeuf receives partial funding from the provincial government, and the funds provided must be utilized for, quote, operating expenses. The spokesperson directed any questions about supports for kids living with disabilities, though, to the school in question, which, as I mentioned, is providing no comment. CBC also reached out to the Manitoba Federation of Independent Schools, a nonprofit organization that represents 54 independent and private schools, including St. John Brebeuf Catholic School, and we are still waiting for comment. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're live on Information Radio this morning with us. Thanks for spending some time with us on your Wednesday here, middle of the week. Getting through the last week of July, and we've got a really smoky day on our hands. We've got air quality warnings all across southern Manitoba and for parts of the north. In Winnipeg, the sun is cracking through the smoke a little here. It's 14 degrees, winds are calm, and a high today of 24 degrees if you're setting up what it's going to be like for you today. It is now exactly 3 minutes to 8 o'clock. Heather Wells is here with a news update from our department. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, she says it was chaotic and frightening. Amy Ryan describing the fast exit from the community of Cormorant yesterday after wildfire moved closer to the town. Ryan says the 300 people living in that town near the Pas were told Monday to have their bags packed and be ready to go. But yesterday, the wind changed direction and everyone was given an hour to get out. Concerns this morning, the extended closure of Winnipeg's Louise Bridge will lead to it closing indefinitely. A similar situation happened in 2023 when it was decided the Arlington Bridge was too far gone to repair. It has been closed indefinitely. Cindy Tugwell at Heritage Winnipeg doesn't want to see the Louise Bridge end up the same way. We'll hear more in our next local news coming up at 8:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Your commute this morning seems to be going fine. Call us with problems at 788-3093. Coming up after 8 o'clock on the program, we have a special panel that will be live in studio with the wildfires raging across Manitoba and the country. How are young people dealing with climate anxiety? The panel of Gen Zers will be in studio. We'll hear what they have to say about the impact on their lives and their families and their livelihoods as well, so stay tuned. Also, as you may have heard yesterday, the City of Winnipeg is denying a permit for a controversial U.S. musician to perform in Central Park, citing operational concerns to have it happen. However, we are going to hear from someone after 8 o'clock who says that decision raises red flags, and red flags specifically about censorship. So stay tuned. That's coming up after 8. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You are with CBC. World Report's next.
Today on Q.
I'm Garvey Bailey, sitting in for Tom Power. World-renowned fashion designer Prabal Gurung grew up with an abusive father and bullies at school who teased him for being too feminine.
Didn't fit in the narrow description of what a boy should behave like or walk like or be like.
His new memoir pays tribute to all the women who made him the designer he is today.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current.
I'm Catherine Cullen. Even as the 2-year-old war in Sudan continues, millions of refugees are returning home, not because it's safe, but because they feel they have few options. The growing desperation for people in Sudan, coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Across the Pacific, some people in coastal towns and cities are being told to go to higher ground. Tsunami waves could be coming. A powerful, shallow magnitude 8.8 earthquake struck Russia's Far East yesterday. It is one of the strongest quakes ever recorded. Large waves rippled out from the epicenter. A tsunami advisory is in effect for parts of coastal British Columbia. And the first swells are starting to hit Vancouver Island. Right now, they're under 30 centimeters high. The CBC's Mira Baines has the latest.
Chief Elmer Frank, the emergency coordinator for the Kla'oquiat First Nation near Tofino, was cautious after the earthquake.
Because we've seen that it's a larger earthquake than we've seen in our lifetime, in my lifetime anyway, that's that close, that could potentially affect our BC coast.
The potential of strong waves from tsunami activity along BC's west coast triggered a flurry of advisories. The earthquake struck just before 4:30 Pacific in the afternoon off the coast of eastern Russia in the Pacific Basin. People along BC's coast are being advised to avoid marinas, harbors, beaches until emergency officials say it's safe. Seismologist Tammy Mulder with Natural Resources Canada is warning that even smaller tsunami waves can be dangerous.
There are much stronger currents along the coastline up and down and very confused waters. And so it's very important for people to know that even with these lower forecasted wave heights, one still wants to be away from the water.
Emergency Management BC is warning that waves arrive in a series, and the first may not be the biggest. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
Part of Northern California is still under a tsunami warning. Waves just over a meter high are hitting the coast off Crescent City. That is just south of the border with Oregon. Further south in California, the warnings have been downgraded to advisories. Hawaii is also under just an advisory now. Major General Stephen Logan tells residents what they can expect in the coming hours.
A tsunami advisory means that the potential for strong currents or dangerous waves are expected or occurring for those in or near the water. There may be flooding of beach or harbor areas. Those who have evacuated may safely return home based on county assessments and directives.
Some Central and South American countries are encouraging people to leave coastal regions. Ecuador is warning tsunami waves 1.5 meters high are expected to hit the Galapagos Islands this morning, and that bigger waves could follow. In Japan, officials are taking no chances. Nearly 2 million people are under evacuation advisories, though the country has just downgraded its tsunami warnings. Cass Boivin reports from Tokyo.
Civil defense sirens wail in Japan's northern prefecture of Hokkaido as officials warn a tsunami of up to 3 meters high could soon crash into the coast. People flee to rooftops or take to the roads in bumper-to-bumper traffic up hillsides. So far, at least one person has died in the scramble to reach safety. A 58-year-old woman in central Japan, whose car careened down a cliffside after her city was placed under a tsunami advisory. It's been almost a decade and a half since a powerful tremor and subsequent tsunami devastated parts of eastern Japan, especially the Tohoku region, home to the Fukushima nuclear plant. Workers decommissioning that facility are among those who've been forced to move to higher ground. By late afternoon, there were reports of tsunami waves of more than 1 meter high reaching some areas. No major damage yet, but it's too early to rest easy. Because the quake happened so far away, bigger waves could still be on the way. Cass Boivin for CBC News, Tokyo.
CBC News has learned the Canadian government is weighing whether to recognize Palestinian statehood, and if so, whether that recognition would come with conditions. Prime Minister Mark Carney is expected to discuss the Middle East this afternoon at a virtual cabinet meeting. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer threatened to recognize a Palestinian state yesterday. Starmer says he will do it in September if Israel does not agree to a ceasefire in Gaza and allow the UN to bring in more aid. The Alberta riding of Battle River Crowfoot may be a traditionally conservative riding, but Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has a lot of competition for that seat. The by-election is just under 3 weeks away. 10 candidates were part of a debate last night, and as Julia Wong reports, Poilievre faced a lot of criticism from his challengers.
I absolutely 100% agree. If you want to run for an area, you need to live here.
Pointed words attacking Pierre Poilievre, the Conservative leader, one of 10 candidates at a forum for the Battle River Crowfoot by-election. Poilievre lost his Ottawa area riding in April's federal election. Independent candidate Bonnie Critchley is taking issue with him running now in Alberta.
I have no personal aspirations. I don't want to do this. But it is important to me that we have a voice in Parliament. I firmly believe that Monsieur Poilievre is too busy with his own personal ambitions to give a rat's backside about us.
Grant Abraham is a candidate with the United Party of Canada.
Pandering to Ontario and Quebec to get this gentleman elected, and you're paying the price. That's what's going on.
Poilievre says there can be upsides to having a leader of a political party as the area's MP.
That leader can bring a very powerful megaphone to the local issues of the community.
While Poilievre was the main target of attacks, he remained subdued and connected issues he has previously campaigned on to voters in the rural riding.
Your right to protect and keep your firearms. That is a local issue.
Voters head to the polls August 18th. Julia Wong, CBC News, Camrose, Alberta.
U.S. President Donald Trump is making another new tariff threat, this time against India. On social media, he says the U.S. will start imposing a 25% tariff on all goods from India as of August 1st. That is also the deadline for Canada to reach a deal with the U.S. Trump says he's not planning to extend that deadline. The Bank of Canada will release its latest interest rate later this hour. The benchmark rate has been sitting at 2.75% since March. As our senior business reporter Nisha Patel tells us, many economists are not expecting another cut.
The bank is going to continue to hold.
Economists, including RBC's Claire Fan, are nearly unanimous. The Bank of Canada is likely to hold its key interest rate steady at 2.75% for the third time in a row.
Some of the data on the economy that we've seen have pointing to surprisingly more strength and resilience. in both sort of labor market as well as underlying inflation. So I think
Canada added a surprising 83,000 jobs in June, and core inflation has been stuck near 3% since April. That's eased the pressure for further interest rate cuts. In fact, Fan predicts the central bank is done lowering rates for now.
Again, there's a lot of resilience in terms of consumer spending and early signs of housing market activities kind of recovering as well. Our outlook for the second half of the year is really for this sort of slower growth, but not really contractionary sort of state to continue.
Not all experts agree, with some expecting 2 more cuts starting in the fall. Forecasts could change quickly, depending on how the U.S. trade war plays out. So far, the damage has largely been contained to 3 industries: autos, steel, and aluminum, though Canada faces a 35% tariff on some exports if a deal isn't reached by August 1st. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
After the Bank of Canada makes its announcement, the U.S. Federal Reserve will make its key interest rate decision. For 3 decades, the Federal Reserve has set monetary policy based on consensus among its governors. But 2 of the 7 governors were appointed by Donald Trump, and the U.S. president has been threatening to fire the Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell, for not lowering interest rates. If there is no rate cut today, those Trump appointees could take the highly unusual step of dissenting from the decision. A marching band plays the Black Sabbath hit Iron Man on the streets of Birmingham, England. They led the public funeral procession of the band's former frontman. Thousands of people lined the route to pay their respects to Ozzy Osbourne. Osbourne died last week. He was 76 years old. His wife Sharon and some of his children stopped at the Shrine of Flowers. They each added their own bouquets before getting back into their car. Ozzy Osbourne will have a private family funeral. That is World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Smoky. I feel like I've been saying that every single day, and I probably have, but today it's kind of going to impact how we experience the weather because the sun is still having trouble cracking through. We also have air quality warnings that extend across much of the province. So Abby's in a moment to walk us through what your Wednesday looks like. Also, we are going to have a couple of different conversations. With those wildfires raging across the province, how are young people specifically dealing with climate anxiety? We have a panel of Gen Zers to join us in studio. We'll hear what they have to say about the impact on their lives. So stay tuned for that. Also in this hour of the program, you may have heard yesterday making news, the city of Winnipeg has denied a permit for a controversial U.S. musician, Sean Foyt, to perform in Central Park. But we're going to talk to a guest who says that decision raises red flags about censorship. We will find out exactly what those red flags are for this guest, and he is an expert in areas of discussion around this. And we'll also hear more about the city and what they said about why they denied that permit. So we have a busy half hour ahead. Let's go quick to headlines here. Heather Wells is in at 8:11. Heather?
300 people from the community of Cormorant are out of their homes this morning as wildfire threatens the town. It's about 80 kilometers north of the Paw. Amy Ryan says they were told Monday night to have their bags packed. Yesterday, they were told they had an hour to get out. We're going to hear what happened there coming up. As well, Winnipeg home care workers and clients say they are frustrated over a new centralized scheduling system. The Winnipeg Regional Health Authority implemented that system nearly 5 months ago, but it is being described as disruptive and causing absolute chaos. Our next news coming up at 8:30.
All right, thank you, Heather. Abby, what's up in the weather?
Smoke and haze continues to be a concern from north to south. Air quality warnings in place. Winnipeg, we are at 15, and that's what most of the regions seeing this morning. The orange glow is really trying to struggle behind the clouds this morning. So take it easy out there. You see anything in traffic? Let us know. 788-3093.
Well, obviously, you know that this is one of the worst wildfire seasons that we have on record. They have evacuated entire towns, shut down public events. The smoke has caused health-related issues. This is all at a time when Manitobans are looking forward to this time of year, right? We wait for summer in this province. We want to have fun. We want to rest and relaxation. We want to be outside. This can all have a serious impact, not only on your physical health with the smoke, but this can have an impact on your mental health, what's going on. We wanted to check in with our Gen Z panel about how the smoke and fire situation is affecting them and also around the idea of climate anxiety. River Enan is a 21-year-old finance student at the University of Manitoba and here to weigh in on the panel. Good morning.
Good morning.
Also with us, Victoria Romero, 23 years old, over at the University of Manitoba, studying political studies. Good morning.
Hi.
And back with us as well is Kyler Zanelli, 21-year-old business student, also at the U of M. Hi there.
Hello.
So wildfires obviously are raging across the province. How are you affected, River?
I personally, I'm an active person during summer especially, and being inside during winter is like pretty depressing. So people try to go out as much as they can during summer. And since the weather is like this, smoky, it really affects my active life. And I find that I spend less time being outside.
And what does that do for you mentally?
It's pretty depressing. There's this anxiety of not being able to active or like going out more with my friends. I just don't like being inside that much, and it really limits that time.
Kyler, how about for you? What's the impact been?
Not good.
Really?
Not
Capital
good at all.
NG, right?
If we're being honest, I'm not a fan. It's really taken a damper on my mood. And I know a lot of my other friends are feeling the same way because I got a lot of friends with asthma, and it really keeps it inside. It's not ideal.
In terms of your experience with this, Victoria, what's the impact been?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like you said best, we spend basically our whole winter inside, and now that it's nice enough to be outside, we can't even go out because we're worrying about our health and how the air, because it's so polluted, will impact our health. My cottage was within the first evacuation zone, and luckily my family's all safe. I can't imagine if it was my home or my entire livelihood. But yeah, just having that hit close to home, it's definitely something that I think other young Manitobans are thinking of too.
It's changed actually some of the daily things as well. Is it right that River, you kind of stopped walking to work even, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I started taking the bus.
Does anyone have an economic impact because of the wildfire smoke in their families, like people that make a living outside and such? Because I know we've been doing stories about that as well.
Yeah, I definitely know a lot. Like, I have a lot of friends who are, Gen Z, and because of that, they don't have as much liberty to take time off, or they're working jobs, summer jobs that are like labor-based or outdoor landscaping jobs. So it's definitely taken a toll, and even just having to take the bus instead of having a reliable car is a big issue as well with breathing in the air.
What about for you, Kyler? What are the conversations, would you say, about the environment and climate like between you and your friends right now, if we look at that bigger anxiety piece?
So I spoke to a lot of people about this because I thought, if you're going to be up here to talk to everybody, might as well, make it worth it more than just my opinion. So what I found was Gen Z and like my friends were very apathetic towards it. So none of them said they had climate anxiety. And I thought that was very, very, very concerning, but also questionable.
Okay.
So when I thought about it a little bit more, I came to the realization that I don't think there's a piece in our daily lives that make it priority number one. It doesn't remind us to act on it in our daily lives because we got a lot going on. And so what I found with my friends is that they will take it in a moment's notice to do something environmentally friendly, but they'll not go out of their way. And so that doesn't really help with climate anxiety, but they're not really feeling it either.
Got it. How about for you, River? I know you talked to some of your friends as well about it.
Yeah, for sure. I think that there's a ignorance going on around our generation where we talk about stuff only when they're like currently happening. And once it passes away, we just don't care about it anymore, or don't talk about it anymore, but even though the issue still exists. Yeah.
Would it be different? I wonder if we're all sitting here in the city of Winnipeg, right? Mm-hmm. So we're all protected. So I wonder whether or not it would be different in other areas that are more affected by it. What's your sense of climate anxiety in your generation around the wildfires this year, Victoria?
I think that apathy is very real, but I think the way I see it more often is in those that do have the climate anxiety, but not necessarily to the point where they're fearing for the future, but to the point where they've actually accepted that our future will be plagued by ecological disasters or climate climate change impacts like wildfires, flooding, changes in temperature. So I think there's also a lot of hopelessness that comes in that. This is, if you look back to like 2019 when there was those Fridays for Future climate change protests, we had a lot of young high schoolers, middle schoolers, even elementary school kids coming out to these protests. And I think those people grew up and then realized maybe, they felt like they weren't being heard, and it's getting very apathetic now.
So waned off. Kyler, your hand's up. You want to weigh in?
Yeah, I think that it's a situation now where Gen Z are entering, and you could say millennials too, are entering the stage in their life where, for better or for worse, they're just trying to survive. So it's not that they don't care. It's just they don't have the situation to be able to make that change. Again, it's not that they don't care. They're just at a point in their lives where they're just trying to survive.
I'm wondering about the leadership then. How optimistic are you, Victoria, because you were talking about this sort of what can be done about it. How optimistic are you that the elected officials, provincial and federally in this country, are going to make progress on the climate front?
I think we're seeing some really dangerous things, even in just the first few months of Mark Carney's term. His decision to push through the unconstitutional Bill C-5, which enables the federal government to deem projects in the national interest and then override rules, regulations, treaty, and constitutional agreements to, build pipelines or other mining projects. And this is a huge red flag, and it's going to cause disastrous consequences for our environmental outlook and for climate change. And then to see, Premier Canoe has been vocal about how we need to include Indigenous voices and Indigenous rights in resource extraction, which Bill C-5 doesn't do. But even still, Premier Canoe believes that our disaster mitigation, climate change mitigation efforts should be funded by projects like mining and pipelines, which is very dangerous because those projects contribute to climate change.
You're a business student, right?
Correct.
Okay, so you're going to get this question. How do we balance the economy with the impact on climate?
Oh, fantastic question. Well, how I like to look at it is, and you made a really great point, with Bill C-5 and with pipeline talks, it brings up this conflict between, climate change and environmentally friendly legacy cash cows, and then actual legacy cash cows like oil and gas. And so how we can balance it, I believe there's two ways. But businesses are kind of just like us in a way that businesses are just full of people and they change because of money. And so when you talk about change of a business, you need to talk about the cash flow of it. So you can either add cash to it or you can save them money. So the best way I've heard is, well, there's two, but I'll give you just the short rundown. Mm-hmm. The first one is, you need to create a demand. So us as people need to want eco-friendly things. The government needs to help in creating that demand through, funding of projects, education, all these things. Because I'm sure we'll solve climate change, but the question is, will we solve it in time? So, and then the government needs to do incentives to work on the supply, to help fix the supply.
So last word's going to go to you, River, and this kind of all connects because all three of you sort of said that you feel that there's some apathy, like there's care and advocacy in the moment in your generation, but then they can wane off, right? I think you were talking about a few years ago that, the climate action, and then people sort of stop saying and speaking out. How can you turn some of what might be quieter stress, because it could still be there, into positive action and spark up the generation again, do you think maybe?
I feel like social media would be a great source to use to increase awareness of the situation. I'd also keep talking about it, not at the current moment that things are happening, but continue to talking about it and actually taking action towards this. I feel like volunteering with some of the organization who's trying to do better about the situation is a big one. Just being active.
Thank you all for being here. Really appreciate it. We never have enough time, but we got a lot out of it. I know the listeners did as well. So thank you, River.
Thank you.
And thank you, Victoria.
Thank you.
And thank you very much, Kyler.
Fantastic to be here.
So that's River Enan, 21-year-old finance student as well as Victoria Romero, 23-year-old University of Manitoba political studies student, and Kyler Zanelli, 21-year-old business student at the University of Manitoba. Today, they are our Gen Z panel. If you want to be on the panel, if you're thinking about maybe being on the airwaves with us, if you want to weigh in on climate today, because that was our topic, or climate anxiety, you can always call 788-3205. Up next on the show, the City of Winnipeg, as you may have heard yesterday, has decided to deny a permit for a controversial U.S. musician to perform in the public Central Park. Sean Foyt has advertised the concert in the city for August 20th. It will not happen in the park. The Christian rocker has spoken out against 2S LGBTQ plus community and is affiliated with the MAGA movement. A number of other Canadian cities recently canceled concerts as well, citing safety concerns. Now, in the City of Winnipeg, to be clear here, we have been told by the city that the concert was canceled. The permit request for the concert was denied, rather, because of operational concerns. She says a large-scale gathering would overwhelm Central Park's capacity. That's Daniel McIntyre City Councillor Cindy Gilroy. But she also said it was about setting a standard for public spaces. Scott Gillingham, the mayor of the City of Winnipeg, said the event doesn't align with the city's values, but he did also cite the Charter of Rights and Freedoms as they were weighing the decision. My next guest is here to walk through what might be some concerns about this decision. With us, the director of the Centre for Free Expression at Toronto Metropolitan University, James Turk. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So you've been watching and weighing in on these cases across Canada as this artist, Foyt, was looking to have concerts like this. What's your reaction to the City of Winnipeg's decision to not allow this in the public space?
Well, when a public body cancels or denies a person a right to speak, it always raises red flags. You know, we live in a democracy, and our charter recognizes freedom of expression as one of the 4 fundamental freedoms in Canada. And so censorship, which is really what canceling an event is a way of dealing with differences in society that's almost always ineffective and usually counterproductive. And the fact that we're having this conversation this morning is an indication of it. Here's a guy I'd never heard of, and what I've heard of him, I wouldn't walk across the street to hear him. Probably 99.99% of your listeners had never heard of him. And now we're talking about him. He's front page news. He's talked about on radio and TV. So the attempt to censor him has backfired in a way that's brought him attention that $1 million in advertising would have never brought him.
Now, I will say that, the city has said this is because of operational concerns. But certainly we've heard from a number of people this week who have concerns pointing to what message he might bring. I take your point about amplifying the message that otherwise may not have been heard. I do wonder, though, that when there are messages that come through that are deemed to be hateful or hurtful, how does a community decide that and where that line is, where, no, this is freedom of speech, or this is actually something deeper that we need to censor? And I hate saying even that word, need to censor. But, I mean, where we're at now is trying to figure out how we move forward, because this is not the first or last case of this.
No, you're absolutely right. It's our laws and our courts that set the limits of free expression in our country, and we do have hate speech laws. But what the line is a difficult and vague one. I'll just give you a quick example. In Saskatchewan, more than a decade ago, there was a fundamentalist preacher who wrote 4 pamphlets that were deemed to be homophobic by the Human Rights Commission, and he appealed it to the Saskatchewan Court of Queen's Bench, which found, yes, they were homophobic. He then appealed it to the Saskatchewan Court of Appeal, which found that none of them crossed the line into being hate speech or homophobic. And so Saskatchewan appealed to the Supreme Court of Canada, which found that 2 of them did and 2 of them didn't. And the Supreme Court was unanimous in its decision and tried to define what the boundary is when something crosses into hate speech. And what it basically said was that we don't have a right not to be offended. We find something hurtful or offensive or affronts our dignity does not in itself make it hate speech. What's hate speech is when you vilify a person or a group of people based on race or ethnicity or gender orientation as being not worthy of the rights of all other human beings, as being despicable, as being just beneath contempt and so forth. That's the line. And what our courts have said is, in a democracy, we live in a really complex, heterogeneous society where widely different views, and the best way to deal with that is the free flow of ideas. And if you don't like something, you can protest against it, you can speak out against it, you can ignore it, but only in exceptional circumstances can we deal with it by silencing someone.
Someone had written on my Facebook page with concern about the city's decision over this concert, saying, "Can't you see that shutting someone down like this puts you all in danger of being next?"
Well, that is the problem. The problem with censorship is, well, I guess I'd say it a different way. The Toronto Public Library had a campaign about freedom of expression and intellectual freedom, and one of my favorite posters was, "I'm all for free speech, but..." And I think that's true of all of us. We have no problem with, in fact, we're big champions of free speech until we come across free speech come across speech we don't like at all. And then censorship is increasingly a response. And it comes from the left, it comes from the right, and it's almost always counterproductive. And so, in this case, if there were clear evidence that what he was likely to do is engage in hate speech or otherwise violate the law in his presentation, the city has a right to not allow him to perform. But in the absence of that, they really don't. And there can be observers there or police there, so if he does cross the line, they can charge him. But we don't silence speech in anticipation that somebody might say something unless there's really good grounds to think that he's going to cross the line into illegal behavior. And a city has a special responsibility. Our charter, which identifies freedom of expression as one of the 4 fundamental freedoms, applies to all governments at all levels. And so you said the mayor made reference to the charter. I don't see how shutting this down could be compliant with the charter unless the city has evidence that he's going to lapse into hate speech, in which case they are legitimate in shutting it down. But absent that, they're not.
And I know that the city has said that, again, just to reiterate, this was for operational concerns.
Yeah, well, that's the kind of, in Parks Canada case in Halifax and Charlottetown, they did it for security concerns. It's hard for me to believe that an obscure MAGA-supporting Christian fundamentalist preacher is going to engage in the kind of speech and draw the kind of crowd that the local police force can't deal with.
Now, I want to point out
operational reasons of security just strikes me as an excuse for an action which I think they know in their heart of hearts is probably a violation of the charter.
We'll have to leave it there, Mr. Turk. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
James Turk is director of the Centre for Free Expression at Toronto Metropolitan University. I will point out CBC reviewed several recordings of previous prayer concerts led by Sean Foyt and couldn't find any examples of him using those platforms to voice anti-LGBTQ plus messages. We did reach out to Sean Foyt before the city's decision not to allow the concert in the public park or to agree with the permit. And at that point, he declined an interview, but in a statement he said, quote, "If I'd shown up with purple hair and a dress claiming to be a woman, the government wouldn't have said a thing, but to publicly profess deeply held Christian beliefs is to be labeled an extremist and to have free worship events classified as public safety risks," end quote. You can read more online. Your news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it is smoky and 15 degrees in Winnipeg. Air quality warning continues through the day, although we do expect the smoke situation to start to improve later today. A high of 24. Chaotic and frightening. That's how Amy Ryan describes a quick exit from the community of Cormorant yesterday after wildfire moved closer. Ryan says on Monday, the 300 people in that town north of the Pas were told to have their bags packed.
It was pretty scary because it was far away, but the wind picked up and it was coming straight for the town. And we were all worried. We thought the fire went out, and then all of a sudden, overnight, it started up again and getting evacuated.
Ryan says fire trucks drove through Cormorant yesterday, sirens blaring with loudspeakers telling everyone they had 1 hour to get out. She got her 3 children, including a 6-month-old baby, and went to the school to register. Ryan says most people were getting on buses to go to RBC Convention Centre in Winnipeg. She is staying with her sister in the Pas. Manitoba Hydro says it doesn't know when power lines in a remote northern community can be fixed. Opipon Napiwin Cree Nation has been without power since the start of the month because of wildfires burning nearby. The 900 people still in that community have been relying on backup generators and propane to keep things running, including their health centre. Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs Grand Chief Kyra Wilson wants something done now.
When it comes to supporting our communities, it's very slow moving. Manitoba Hydro needs to be there. They need to be supporting our nations. They make so much money off of our nations. But when it comes to actually putting in the services, that is not a priority.
Manitoba Hydro says it is monitoring the situation, but the area, it says, is not safe to access. However, community leaders say they have been able to get to the power lines without issue. Winnipeg home care workers and clients say they are frustrated over a new centralized scheduling system. The Winnipeg Regional Health Authority implemented the system nearly 5 months ago to try to improve the service. But patients like George Cannell don't know who's coming to help or when.
Oh yeah, we talk about it all the time about home care. It's like a running, oh, did your home care person show up? No, mine didn't come today. Did yours? Yeah, you know what I mean?
Health Minister Uzoma Eseguera acknowledges the change has been disrupted, but says efforts are focused on improving the centralized rollout. Canada's trade relationship with the United States is worth saving. That was the message Winnipeg business leaders heard from the U.S. ambassador yesterday. Pete Hoekstra spoke to about 200 people at a Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce event. WinPAC Vice President Randy Zazitsko also was part of a smaller meeting with about 20 business leaders and politicians. He says the ambassador held out hope Canadian goods entering the U.S. could end up with lower tariffs than other countries have been able to negotiate.
From his perspective, he says there is no reason why we look at the agreements that have been achieved at the 10, 15%, whatever. He says there's no reason Canada can't be even lower than that. Now, he didn't promise that by any means.
Despite recent tariff talk from U.S. President Trump, Hoekstra says a continent-wide free trade zone could be a possibility. At a heated, packed town hall last night, a group called Fairness for Clear Lake pushed for Park Canada's boat ban to be lifted. That ban was introduced over May-long weekend to stop the spread of invasive zebra mussels. Fairness for Clear Lake says cottage and business owners have been left out of the decision-making. Trevor Boquest says boats need to be back on the water.
There's really no scientific support that says that boats would have affected the spread of mussels. Like, the mussels are already in the water. They spread over 18 months with no boats in the water.
Parks Canada says it is studying the spread of zebra mussels and how it's affected by boats. The results will be analyzed this fall. And concerns this morning, the extended closure of Winnipeg's Louise Bridge will lead to it closing indefinitely. A similar situation happened in 2023 when it was decided the Arlington Bridge was too far gone to repair. It has been closed indefinitely since then. Cindy Tugwell at Heritage Winnipeg doesn't want to see the Louise Bridge end up the same way.
Historically, that bridge is so important to the city. It's the first bridge that opened and really put us on the map as a major urban center, and we were developing and we were confident.
The 115-year-old Louise Bridge spanning the Red River was supposed to reopen this week, but unforeseen maintenance issues are pushing that reopening to early September. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Coming up today on Radio Noon's Call, and we've been told 10,000 steps a day is what we should strive for, but maybe you only need 7,000. The call-in today on Radio Noon is going to look at some of the new benchmarks for better health. I want to thank our associate producers who worked on today's program, Chidi Akuma and Marshall Hodgins. Great work, you two. Our current affairs reporter, Jim Agapito, who produced our Gen Z panel as well. Thank you, Jim. In our news department, Heather Wells, Joni Nicolo, and Megan Ketchison. Thank you all, as always, for your hard work in developing news coverage. And our live team, Sierra Sanders, Brad Lillies, and Abby Adeyemi, who's going to tell us about the weather one last time.
Sunny and smoky with hazy conditions stretching all the way into the northern part of the province with air quality warnings in a lot of the regions. The south, we're seeing temperatures around 15-16 right now. Hazy skies, that smoke will continue, but we should see some clear conditions tonight, and the sunny conditions will return tomorrow. Up north, take care. The smoke is still very, very much present there.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone, and be well, as I like to say, and thank you so much for listening to Information Radio today. Lots to think about on today's show, and if you want to weigh in on anything you heard, 788-3205 is the listener line. We're back again tomorrow with another edition of the show on CBC. Stay right here on 89.3 The Current. Coming up next.